Okay, this is episode 43 of Summoning Insight. I'm Thorin, usual host here, and I thought I'd let everyone in, by the way. I actually had one of the best days of my life, one of those days where everything goes right. It's satisfying, because in one day, I got to see a best of 5 between Unicorns of Love and SK, and that went just the way I wanted it to. And then I got to see a best of 5, I got to see a CSGO final between the team that I like versus a team of like heathens, just beasts from Eastern Europe who just don't use any strategy, and then the beasts won, obviously. And then I got to close out the night with a wonderful series between TIP, Team Impulse, and TSM. So it's been a great week for me, very memorable. I'll probably look back on this as sort of like the heyday of my life. Like, I feel like once I've hit this zenith, I can't ever really go to those heady heights again, I'll chase that dragon, as it were, much like TIP. And everyone's webcam's gone off, so that's already fucked right there. Can everyone turn them back on, please? I can't be fucked saying all this again. I'm not saying all that shit again. Does everyone turn their webcam on?
No, it says group webcams are unavailable at the moment. Please try again later. All right, I'm back.
It's working now.
Okay.
It gave me an error message.
There we go.
Right, don't say anything inappropriate, because I'm not fucking restarting. That's the start of the show right there. Everyone watching on stream now, I'm not fucking cutting that. So anyway, yeah, so it was a wonderful day, I even fucked up the joke about chasing the dragon. It fucked everything up, money. Anyway, ignore that. Nothing got fucked up. It was a wonderful week. Everything went as it should have gone. All of my philosophies were borne out. And so, speaking of wonderful weeks where all of our philosophies are borne out, things go the way we want them to, I know for Monty it was another great week as well. He's been really looking forward to this episode.
Yeah, of course. All the TSM fans I know have been looking forward to it too, because they just say that we're going to be super salty and they can't wait to hear us. So thank you for watching.
Yeah. Have you ever noticed that it's quite interesting? I've noticed this phenomenon, Monty. It doesn't just apply to TSM fans, but generally it's whichever the biggest fan base is in a game. What they do, right, is... In fact, I've actually always given the analogy, it's sort of like what America as a country does culturally, which is, if America's the best by far in a game, okay, they're just dominating some sort of sport or game. If any other country complains or says like, oh, it's bullshit, they're always like, oh, you're gonna cry, are you? Oh, get wrecked, idiot. But then if America loses in a game or isn't as good at something, they're like, it's unfair. They have all like advantages and stuff, and we don't even like try that hard and stuff. It's like that's exactly what fans are like, right, Monty? Because if they're right, if TSM fans are right, they're like, oh, get wrecked. You got shit on. You don't know anything. But then if TSM loses, they're like, come on, be respectful. What's with all the trash talk? You're so disrespectful, man. Like, oh, okay, it's interesting how that double standard works there. So anyway, even though, by the way, Monty, TSM have won, and we are entirely wrong here, I've started out the show attacking fans already, so it's off to a good one. You've triggered me already, fans. I'm already going. So anyway, I'm here, Monty's here, and our guest this week. So I've obviously pulled another classic Thorin move, haven't I? It's like on the shore where we have to sort of eat humble pie, Monty, and get wrecked. You have to bring in that flak. I've given the analogy before. You have to bring in the flak to draw some of the attention and some of the natural hatred away. So I was like, right, well, it better be like a woman, someone who doesn't flaunt their sexuality, at least I hope not. And thirdly, it should be someone who's like intelligent, because those are the 3 things that quite frankly disgust the modern male in our society. So speaking of which, our guest this week is Kelsey Moser. Hello.
Hi.
I've actually noticed that you've just got started a new video series format, and like everyone in an industry, once I see a good format that works, I mean, there's no copyright over ideas, so I'm going to steal that. So actually, next time I come to Korea, I'm going to have this format where me and Monty appear on camera at the same time, and it's sort of like a really weird scenario where it looks like I've sort of like impromptu turned the camera on as we're having like some sort of like a confrontation over some conversation that happened maybe 30 minutes ago, maybe 2 days ago. No one ever knows, and I constantly reference that and keep saying like, of course we'd said this before and thought this, and then the person watching is like, what's going on? Is this like Memento or something? Are they like telling this story back? I don't understand what's going on. So I love that format. I think it's great. I'm going to steal that and take it for my own, Kelsey. I'm sorry. It's mine now.
Okay. I mean, I think Frost was really attached to that format, so I'm sure she'll.
I could tell she thought she hit it out of the park, so I was like, But anyway, Kelsey Moser here.
Speaking of Memento, there was that epic tweet the other day that which one of the pros made it, where it was like getting on Reddit after watching a game, and it was the Memento, and it just had the Polaroid.
Don't believe his lies.
With the Reddit logo, it says "Don't believe it, lies."
Yeah, exactly. Why not? So Kelsey writes for The Score. Formerly wrote for LoL Esports, but actually she's one of my people. Okay, Monty, where people don't know this. There's a secret backstory to esports journalism. Okay, I don't tell anyone if I like talk to people or like give them advice and stuff, but I feel like LoL Esports, right, is a great area because it's like provides money for young writers to start writing there, gives them a framework to learn the business, you know, and they start out, but it's kind of like a limited format. Like you have to write in a certain way and fit a certain narrative, and you have to write certain even word limit. So what I feel is like that's like the training ground where you see like what the talent is, who's actually got something special, and then I'm sort of like Morpheus. That's like the Matrix, and I go in there and I free people one at a time, Monty. I just go in and I'm like, I know there's a world out there that you want to be part, and then I give them the knowledge, and I ask them what their real name is, you know, because LoL Esports only tends to use like the like written name, but I'm like, what is your real name? Actually, what is your real name, Kelsey? What is your alias? Did you ever have one?
I've had some.
What's the best one?
None of them are terribly memorable.
That means they're terrible. Okay.
Yeah, they're really terrible. So we're gonna go with that.
So what was it like? We Arbor 131 or something?
It's even worse because it doesn't. It's like one of them was prehistoric with a Q instead of.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's really awful. So.
Was it something like? I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show her my Yu-Gi-Oh face.
It wasn't even like something that I can claim I came up with when I was 12. It was just lame in its badness. So.
Okay, so speaking of things that are lame in its badness, it's clear your love for Chinese League of Legends, and I hope there's a way that you can show us this right now. And so, speaking of which, let's start in China, okay? Boo! Everyone who's watching the show now, you're supposed to talk about TSM tip now. No, motherfuckers. I choose when we talk about that. I choose when that engagement takes place, and that will be later. Now we will talk about China. So, set your watches. So we'll start in China. Let's just start with the series that actually we watched today, which was we just watched King play Snake. Now, just give it. This is a 3-2 series, Kelsey. But on paper, this was supposed to be an easy win for Snake, by the way that the season went. So why was it so close?
Well, if you talk to, or if you watch any of the interviews with Snake members, they always say that they're really afraid of King. And this goes back to when these were the two teams that were auto-promoted to LPL from LSPL, the secondary league, and King just beat them like all the time in LSPL. So when they get into LPL matches with King, they have mental breaks, and everything that's bad about Snake just like becomes enhanced. And then of course King, people looked at the series and they said, did King get better or did Snake get worse? I think King got better. Oh my gosh, this must be the King that you were talking about at the beginning of the season. It probably is the King I was talking about at the beginning of the season. I just didn't realize how bad they were until like I watched them in this best of 5 format. It's very prolonged sort of, but
am I hallucinating, or wasn't there some storyline that Froskurin told me? Wasn't it literally like the King coach is now the Snake coach or something? Was it something like that?
The King coach is now the Gamgee coach.
Ah, okay. Yeah. But wasn't that supposedly a reason why King got worse? Is that they used to have some awesome coach and then he left during the season?
I think there's some contribution because their draft phase used to be much better.
Listen, you can't get better than pick and Vane 5 games in a row.
I mean, you can't. There's this moment.
That's the tops right there.
5th game where their coach is actually like talking over to him and Whoosh is hovering graves, and then like the coach walks away and then he changes it to Vane and he's like, yeah, no, please stop. No
so the coach tried to tell him, like, in fact what happened was the coach probably told him like, no, go ahead, pick Vane again for the 5th game, and that guy was like, oh okay, yeah, I will, and he was like, whoosh, just went over his head. The guy didn't even get it. Like, what's going on here? I thought we had something. But anyway, actually let's just start on that point there. So King almost won this series, and yet they picked Vane in all 5 games. Can you think up the rationale behind it, Monty? What would the reasoning be? It's the Shreds tanks, it's the super tank meta, you told me.
I don't know. I mean, I was watching the series and they were developing like protective vein comps with Lulu mid and then Maokai, and I just don't get it. They had like no wave clear or very low range wave clear with Karthus and Vayne throughout this series. And like Kassadin, like by all accounts, they should have just gotten wrecked. They should have just gotten wrecked based on their draft. But, you know, it's China, so all kinds of crazy crap just tends to happen for no reason. I mean, it doesn't really matter if you get double killed by Karthus at level 1, I guess. You know, that's just how you snowball your way to victory. I mean, I honestly have no idea what was going on in this series. It was wacky and crazy, and they were just always fighting. And even though Snake, I think, had some really big advantages in terms of a pick and ban phase, they just went all in and died under towers with tower dives instead of just waiting to develop a siege. So crazy.
What do you think, Kelsey? Why so much Vayne focus, do you think?
I mean, China effectively regressed 2 years in terms of the meta during that series, so it was pretty exciting from that perspective if you're like an old school LPL fan. But I think that...
What was genius is they did it with all the new champions. They had Na, they had Callista, they had Azir. So technically it's a new set of comps there. Maybe we've gone full circle and actually they've reinvented the wheel.
Well, it's still Vayne, so we've got that kind of idea going on.
That's true.
But Snake is notoriously bad early game, and the way King used to win all their games is they would just gank repeatedly as like 5 people, but you know, the old OMG quote-unquote freight train style, and this surprised a lot of people, and they did it effectively in at least their 3rd game. Their 2nd game was, I guess, the really bad snake invade and snowballing from there, but in the 3rd game they were really effective in abusing Snake's complete lack of vision, again regressing back 2 years in the Chinese meta, and snowballing their Vayne pick so that it could be really effective against these tanks in early dragon fights, and that's pretty much all that happened.
That's the worst thing about this series. When I saw it unfolding and I saw like, whoa, King's going up 2-1, I thought this was going to be great for everyone as an analyst of China, because it's like that thing of like, you've had to like give ground constantly to like Snakes. I guess they're good. I guess they're very good. Oh yeah, they're one of the best teams. Meanwhile, King was that team where in the off season they looked so good. Like that's the hype train to get on. Like they're winning with vision and stuff. I actually thought like this is going to be so good when King finally wins 3-2. You know, and they come through. Then you can actually have like it'd be sort of like one of those. Okay, you know in Game of Thrones, that character Monty, Lord Baelish, he always has these epic speeches where he like explains like the philosophy of how the real world is. It'd sort of be like, vision, that's to see an enemy as he sees himself. That'd be a rare trick in this world of ours, wouldn't it? And then he'd be like, and then some shit like, and rotations to move around the map. Yeah, you can see where I'm going with it anyway. So. But no, it wasn't to be. Snake prevailed. What do you think this means in terms of the balance in China? Was that just a bad matchup for Snake? Will they be better going forwards, Kelsey?
Well, when we watched the Edward Gaming set and the Invictus Gaming set, like even Team WE had some different picks that they hadn't been showing in the offseason. So you get the sense that every top team except Snake was pretty much sandbagging at the end of the season, and then Snake was just like playing really hard like all season long. We're really going to win this, and everyone just let them have their picks repeatedly. And then this series they played very similar type compositions, like the one change was they had a Vlad that came out, and it just, I think that they would get crushed on the other side of the bracket completely, unfortunately by pretty much any team, except maybe even WE, because technically WE has.
So VG would have crushed Snake. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think so. Just because again, VG,
doubling down. I like it. It's bold.
VG wins with like by avoiding fighting, and both of these teams, King and Snake, just want to fight you all the time. So I mean,
speaking of which, can someone explain this to me? Did I miss something? Why did the AD carry getting caught out under the tower mean everyone in the whole game had to have a fight in the jungle or on the bottom side? I'm confused as to what the order of like events was there, but apparently everyone had to, but not all at the same time. It wasn't a 5v5. It was like a 2v1 into a 3v2 into a 2v5. Like, what the fuck is that? Like, They went full Gambit of versus Unicorns of Love in that fight.
This was always my main criticism of King, even when they were winning, is that if someone got caught out, they had to like feed single file into. So, oh no, we must protect our friend.
Okay.
Immediately after, and then Snake just kind of went along with it. They're like, yeah, okay, this is good.
They were kind of using that like World War I trench warfare approach where you just send waves of men over like one at a time to get killed. And you're like, another wave, send it in. But they all just died, sir. Go in, you cowards.
We went 4-4 against a comp with better wave clear and similar scaling. Like, we won. Excellent. Okay.
I just feel like there's this tacit gentleman's agreement where they're just like, we must fall all in line. It's more not like World War I. It's more like in the 18th century when they would just line up for battles and just walk at each other, because that's the same kind of agreement that exists, right? That everyone must adhere to this all-in strategy at every time.
And that's the thing about Snake, is that since 5.6, and I don't know why this happened, because nothing changed about vision really in 5.6. Like, in theory, because you have some of these farming junglers, they have more opportunities to just like ward instead of itemize for aggressive trades early on. So you have this just Snake completely stopped warding. And what used to happen is, because Crystal tends to overextend so much, they would have like really good vision on the bottom. They would always pick their fights in the red side blue buff area so that they could kind of herd people into that just by like using vision in the lake. And there's just like Snake completely stopped warding when the patch changed, and I'm not sure why.
Speaking of which, you triggered me there, Kelsey. You said the name Crystal. Now, that was the other thing about this series that was going to be glorious, right? Like, I imagine while watching this series that Froscorin looked like she was fucking Ryu from Street Fighter 2 doing like a dragon punch or whatever. Like, yeah! Because he was getting shit on in this series by a fucking no-namer. Like, what happened in this series to Crystal? The star AD carry, Lei Young Uzi as like the Lolly Spots writers who apparently tried to troll us would refer to him as. Shout out to Lolly Spots. Yeah, so anyway, tell me about Crystal in this series.
She does this all the time, and I've pointed out instances in the past where some of his positioning. I think I watched one of Monty's breakdowns of Vici versus Snake, where there is this section where Baka and Crystal were both playing AD carries, a double AD comp, and he had to like freeze. He's like, how did they both get hit by that? Like, how did they both get? And this was against Hatong playing Victor, right? So we already know Hatong is like the super amazing player who always gets like the clutch mechanical double hits with his. Okay, no. So they just kind of overextend sometimes, and Crystal will do that a lot, but he usually has a lot of peel and big comps built around them, so their strength is the front line, and usually you beat Snake by lane swapping effectively, because they don't know how to deal with lane swap and getting like your own top laner far ahead of their front line, so they have no front line to peel for Crystal.
They don't know how to deal with lane swaps. So you're telling me that if we just send SK Gaming over there, they're going to take care of Snake?
I mean, probably. I mean, okay.
So how come no one in China has figured out this weakness?
I mean,
how did they get to number 3? Well, they ended up number 3 in this season.
Yeah, but that's because half of the good teams like didn't start playing seriously until halfway through, and then everyone else decided to play shit they were terrible at for the second half. And Snake's like, again, the only team that's playing exactly the same way they always have.
How can you get good as a region if you don't actually try during the regular season? I mean, I know they have all these games and they don't have to try very hard, but like at a certain point, if you want to improve as a team, you actually have to start trying more than before 10 games before the season ends.
And I agree with that. I also think that part of it is that there are just so many games, which encourages like this kind of behavior where you might take games seriously, but you have more time, so we don't have to be as serious this game. Or, well, we have this great scoreline going into the second half, so we can just play stuff we're bad at all the time, and try to practice.
Oh, the CLG approach. So what you do is you get good, and then you're like, well, now I'm good, so I can pick wherever I want. And you're like, pick stuff that's in meta, but isn't really that good. Oh, shit, I'm only good at one thing. Fuck, it didn't work. Yeah.
And this has been also my problem with their Scrim culture, is by all accounts, their Scrim culture is very much based on figure out as much as we can about them without giving anything away about us.
Ah, the old TSM 2012 approach. I like it. It's bold. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, OMG is notorious. People talk about all the role swaps they're doing and all this stuff in the regular season, which they haven't done as much. Like, obviously, Loveling plays support and jungle sometimes, but the fact that they have, like, Sand top in some games, like, this is stuff that they do in scrims normally. So the fact that we have more and more games, they're treating it more and more like scrims.
I love the idea anyone practices against that. Like, you go in the server, and then San, like, actually appears in the top lane, you just be like, fuck off, not playing, and then just leave the scrim, like, fine, right? Instead, they're just like, yeah, play it out, this might happen in a real game. Like, what? What do you mean the scrim culture? You do realise you're blowing fanboys' minds here, because remember the logic. The only reason, remember, why Western teams aren't as good is because they don't have the same practice schedule and infrastructure. No, it's not to do with the players being inferior. By the way, we'll get to this later, but one of the most beautiful Jat dilemmas was created by fans themselves. I'll get to that later with Unicorn's Love. But anyway, back to that. If they have this terrible scrim culture, how are they so good? Is there something that counteracts it? How are they becoming so good then?
I think some of them do have like dedicated scrims cultures where they take, okay, we're going to be serious in this scrim because we can't like expose this here. Apparently, top LPL teams like to scrim LSPL teams because they'll have like this high mechanical ability, but they'll also take everything seriously, like because they really want to do well. So the LSPL scrim culture is actually pretty good.
That's almost as good as NA right there, because NA does its own retard. Well, I'll just stop that word right there. They do their own interesting scrim culture, Monty, where each team will individually be like, no one takes scrim seriously. Be like, well, if more than one of you's saying that, practice against each other. No, but I wouldn't take scrim serious against them either. Well, that's your problem, isn't it, right there? So in the same scenario, that doesn't make sense what you just said there, Kelsey. Like, see, what top LPL teams will do is they'll practice against LPSL teams, because the LPSL teams take the game seriously. Like, well, if you all are going to take it seriously, just play each other. I think I've solved it for you there.
Part of it is just that, and I think it's improved actually because they have such long seasons and it's so long between when the last team faces each other, because the argument is okay, if we face this team now in scrims and we take it seriously, they're going to know our strategy for the next time we face them. So I think it's improved. Yeah, exactly.
You really don't know. That doesn't make any sense, does it?
I don't understand it either. But I think it has improved. According to Frostgrid, which he was there, was like much better.
That was before the season really even started.
You know what happens, Monty?
Regular season,
this theory that they're trying literally is the Eddard Stark theory from season 1 of Game of Thrones, where he's talking to Jaime Lannister and he says, like, I don't like my enemy to know what I'm capable of. But remember what happened to him? He started to have a fight. He was going to do all his badass shit, and then some fucker just came up behind him and stabbed him through the leg with a spear. I feel like that's symbolic of what this approach gets you, okay? You have to actually practice what you're going to do to be able to execute it. Or you get stabbed in the leg by a spear. Shout outs to Vayne and the Azir play there. Okay.
No, I agree. And they have to get serious practice somewhere, right? Because some teams will just come into playoffs and completely like smash as relative to
Okay, so
what
doesn't
they're
this
doing.
tie into something we saw recently where EDG admitted that they're losing all their scrims or something like that to the Korean teams? So when they practice against Korean teams, they try, right? I mean, this is one of the stories, I think actually, I can't remember if it was you or Froskurin told me how part of the reason EDG developed their style last year was they used to practice with KT Arrows all the time and it was so difficult, etc. So when they practice against Koreans, do they practice them often?
I think there was some agreement where they had more ability to scrim KTA more frequently. I don't know if they have that kind of agreement with any other team right now, but I honestly have no idea about the Korean. I think Monty probably knows more about the Korean and Chinese.
I do. I've actually been talking to a bunch of the teams, and I'm not going to reveal which teams in particular, but I have been talking to them. There has been a lot of scrimming over between like the top Korean teams and the top Chinese teams, and the Korean teams are doing very well in those scrims right now. Very well. Extremely well. So,
maybe
I love his facial expression. It's just so smug.
Well, I've always learned that
again.
scrims mean a lot, Monty, and the reason I say that is because I'm looking forward to a Zenix Modlook winning this season of Champions, which they qualified for, because they did beat up Cloud9 in that scrim. So I know that they must be an excellent team. They probably got into the league, and
very different Zenix Modlook, entirely different team.
That's irrelevant, Monty. I don't need to know those facts. So anyway, back to China. So in this scenario, we had King versus Snake there. Has this thrown you, the fact that King took them so close? Like, is the story, has it degraded Snake a bit for you, Kelsey? Or was this, like, sometimes in series, this happens in the NBA as well. If you just have a bad matchup, the team that eventually wins the championship can sometimes go 7 games in round 1, That actually happened last year in the NBA. The Spurs went 7 games with the Dallas Mavericks, who weren't like the best team at all. But then in the final, the Spurs won comfortably, like fairly comfortably, So it was just a matchup issue in the first round. Will this be the same in terms of King Snake here, do you think?
I think that there is part of that aspect because Snake played worse than they normally do. I think that is definitely an issue. They didn't play like their normal strategy of getting fights in the blue buff area, and they had these weird things that they just opted into where King was like pressuring their turret with 0 wave clear, and they decided to just all go in. And so I think that that's part of it. And again, when you look at the interviews, Snake seems to have some kind of mental block with King because they did used to beat them all the time. So I think that that's a factor. So I anticipated that this might be like a closer series, even though in theory it's like the 7th seed versus the 2nd seed. But overall, I don't think that if Snake were on the other side of the bracket, they wouldn't go very far. They might be okay against OMG and LGD because OMG and LGD I predict will probably play the most different to their regular season performance of any other teams. But I mean, right now,
you think that OMG is actually going to be using their full roster, and that they're not going to be, doing all these crazy. San's not going to be playing top lane and all this other shenanigans. But why do you think that about LGD?
LGD, you've seen like their last couple series where they just picked like Galio top, Ashe, AD carry.
Yeah, but Imp likes playing Galio top.
He does. This is true.
Kelsey.
I mean, but Imp likes playing Ashe too, right? But he's never really actually played it seriously in a competitive match. And LGD was just really shameless in some of their stuff that they did. Like, they lost to IG when IG was playing safe mid.
Yeah, well... Yeah,
at least he has actually played mid. Dude, he was a fucking OG in mid lane at once.
He did play mid professionally.
Yeah, he did used to play mid professionally, and fun fact, one of his first games was against IG. Oh, look at that.
That wasn't as fun as I was hoping for, but okay. I feel like I was oversold on how much fun that fact is going to be. It was a fact, though. You're right there. You've nailed that part.
I got that one. But they just look. I actually think they played a little bit more seriously against OMG, but they still had weird compositions, like TBQ is solo killing people. I mean, maybe TBQ is just a really good jungler, and they're all serious teams all the time. But, like, the really high LGD versus IG kill game that was, like, over 80 kills, like, people talk about how China has so many kills, and they just, like, go ham on each other. Even the Snake King series wasn't like that, but relative to their earlier season performance, where LGD actually played like this really smart wave clear type strategy, they had Whalers and PYL roaming all the time, they did lane swaps pretty well, like they had the Sivir in the solo lane where they could just like get dragon fights and they could come back even though they put themselves behind almost intentionally. That kind of play, they have that, and maybe they just like decided that they don't want that they're idiots now or something. But I can't see them suddenly deciding to drop all strategy like in the second half of the series and then plan to play that way going into playoffs. Maybe they are. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
See, this is where Monty's just a bit naive about the history of China, because actually they do try crazy stuff like the top laner just being the AD carry. Like one time, you guys don't know this, but the original like Vortic, the original ultimate troll was actually Wei Zhao, because him and Cao Mei were actually like, they just swapped positions. Like they swapped from AD carry to top and they went, no one will even know it. And then the ultimate troll was they actually like became the best team in the world and won everything. And the whole time you were thinking like Monty, oh, they're the best team. Look at the way they use this. But behind the closed doors, they were like, they don't even get it. The troll. This is our top player who's played ADK. He's the best. So yeah. Anyway, that was a little diversion there. So now that I've segued into that, Team WE. See how I did that, Kelsey? Jokes into real serious analysis. I'm a professional here, motherfucker. So. As I say, motherfucker, on a live thing. Anyway, so Team WE played against EDG. Now, on the surface, this is where you find out people who find out the scores of games from Reddit threads and people who watch said games. Because there's people who watch Reddit threads who are like, I guess EDG are not as good as previously advertised. Yeah, that wasn't EDG, mate. They didn't have the fucking world champion mid laner. Can you please talk to that? Like, the fact that the first 4 games was 2-2, but using the old mid laner, was that significant?
I think it is significant, especially since, according to like the manager's account, is that Pawn started to have like health complications with his back pain. His account of the story is really, really elaborate, so you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, obviously, because it's like very, like, it's almost a perfect story. Where he wakes, they have to take Pawn to the hospital, and he wakes Yu, the old mid laner, up, and it's like, okay, you have to play now. And Yu says against WE, and of course, because EDG and WE have this history, is Yu's like, yeah, okay, let's play, let's do this. And they take him to the stadium, and so apparently Yu hasn't been practicing with the team at all. They start to pick these like really strange compositions that no one has ever seen EDG play. Like, I don't think ClearLove has ever played Gragas, which Gragas is a good pick, but we've never seen him play it. And he has like this really passive. He regresses to, you know, the ClearLove we all know and
Listen,
love.
I have a lot of faith in ClearLove, 14th best player of all time, to pick up this new champion that's clearly OP in the jungle, by the way, and dominate with it. So continue.
Yeah, well, my prediction has been that ClearLove will regress to like the more herbivore style ClearLove eventually.
Yeah, of course, why not?
He does have these peaks where he's like really good in the past, and they usually happen around playoffs. So I anticipated that EDG would win, and then they would go to MSI, and ClearLove would play like Sightstone, Jarvan, and Nunu all the time, and never gank again, and that would happen. But it seems to be happening a bit more now. But he picked like the Gragas and the Nunu, and didn't have as much lane pressure as he typically does. Whereas of course you're against Spirit. And there was this instance where Spirit just like 1v3s a bunch of people on Italy in game 3. Anyway, so Spirit played a really good series. But then they have Yu, who's playing a champion pool that's very different to Pawn's. Like he played the Orianna pick. I think he played Lulu one game. Pawn typically plays like the more, I don't know, Pawn plays a bunch of different random shit, and it usually doesn't even matter what he's playing because sometimes he can feed and sometimes he does really well. But the point is that EDG was playing with a team that they're not used to playing. There were picks that they typically didn't play in regular season. Then Pawn comes in game 5, and they suddenly are all on like their best champions, like Koro's undefeated on Gnar. You have ClearLove decides to play Rek'Sai magically, which he's done well on during the regular season. Pawn is playing Kassadin, which he's had good performances on recently. Deft plays Corki, which everyone knows Deft has like a very good Corki, and Mako, I think, played Thresh. So you suddenly have this much more proactive EDG-looking EDG in the 5th game, and they just completely smashed WE. I don't understand what was happening in You actually played pretty well. Like in the 4th game, they probably should have won the 4th game because they were ahead and they'd taken an inhibitor, and you had like this moment where he double killed mid and jungle when they went to gank him, and that opened up the map, and EDG got dragons and started to go ahead. EDG played a lot more like, I guess, 2014 EDG, which they would consistently win with these like really poor early games, almost Samsung Blue-esque, and then just like good team fighting late. So they were trying to almost force that style again because Yu was in the mid lane when they just aren't practiced playing it anymore.
See, I think I have the analogy that can clear up your confusion over what happened to ClearLove, okay? So you're thinking like, well, you know, I saw during the regular season, like he was playing like Lee Sin, he was having these like, playing these carry champions, you know, he was actually dominating the game, he would have like 10 kills in a game, it was crazy stuff, okay? This was like ClearLove at his best. So it's sort of like, you know, rappers like, for example, like 50 Cent, you know, he will rap about selling crack, about being on the streets, about running blocks, dumping blocks, all that good shit. But the problem is, Kelsey, he's not actually about that life. Like, if he comes face to face in the club and he's popping bottles and he actually meets a real street fellow, I'll just say fellow. If he meets a real street fellow, then he's not about that life. So he's not going to be able to go into that sort of a style. Now, he has to just back the fuck off, chill out. Listen, I don't want any trouble here. Let's just, you know, you go about your life, I go about mine. We're both running in different circles here. That's what happens when you go up against a spirit type individual. That's my theory.
Well, and he also had those really good games against Dandy recently, so, I mean...
Yeah, Dandy doesn't actually have any solo laners. I don't know if you're aware of this yet. Like, I don't know if you've been watching this season or not. Like, yeah. Okay, so anyway...
No. But no, I agree.
We'll get to that later, though.
ClearLove, to me, is always going to be, like, the more passive early game jungle who has really good team fighting. He occasionally has like these really high peaks that he hits, and this has been the longest period where he's been able to hit that consistently, but I do think he'll eventually like go back to the ClearLove we know and love.
Well, what do you think it is about ClearLove, though? Because we know he can. I mean, he's had these amazing Lee Sin games all season, and I didn't get to see the last 2 quarterfinals. I only saw King versus Snake because I was otherwise occupied casting Hearthstone, and then I was away yesterday. But
game
so what do you think about that? Why, since we know he can play this way, does he regress, as it were?
I'm not sure what it is. I do think that because it just has happened so frequently, and I used to say, okay, he kind of sandbags himself during regular season, and then he comes out and he usually has these great performances in playoffs, because that's what happened last year. This year, he just has had really great performances over an extended period of time in playoffs. I think the patch change is part of it. Like the Gragas and Nunu picks encourage more of his farming style, so he just like goes back to being comfortable on that. He picked the Rek'Sai and had much better early game pressure, so I do think that that's an issue. Like if he just would pick those junglers again, I think he'd probably still perform. So it's part of him adjusting to the new jungle champion pool. Like in theory, you can have a really good better pressure style on Gragas, but it's not as necessary.
I don't want to make this seem like an attack or anything. When have I ever said anything like that on this show? But anyway, I don't even know why I'm prefacing anything like that. Like that's unnecessary actually at this point in the show. It's in the terms and conditions when you open the show. So, but I have a serious question for you here, Kelsey.
Okay.
If you actually thought that ClearLove was the 14th best player of all time before this season with his old form, then when you saw him this season, you must have been like, he's gone up even another level. So he must have been like just top 10 player of all time, like even better player. Like, I mean, what is that not? Is there no cognitive tearing going on when you have to ask how those two facts can be resolved? That's all I'm asking.
I actually wouldn't.
Was this your own dilemma? Was this the Kelsey dilemma?
I actually wouldn't have elevated his performances because, again, I know that he's occasionally capable of like being a jungler, but and actually a pretty good jungler. So I still felt like, again, this was just an extended period of time in which he's able to hit this, which hadn't happened before. But he hasn't had like the results with it, whereas he's had the results with the old style. And I do think his team fighting is like really, really good, and that's why I rate him highly. I think that his team fighting in some cases actually dictates EDG style. And the thing about his teams, like W and EDG, is that they hit ClearLove's peak. ClearLove is almost like the limiting factor on those teams. So
I'm getting triggered here, but keep going.
No, I mean, like they have these great carries, but
oh god. So this is where you and Frostgorin have actually successfully, like, it's like you've scouted the area. Like, there's got to be some reason as to why we can make ClearLove the best. Like, you know, we don't need to just say, look with your eyes, it's apparent he's the best. We don't need to say, like, look at the way he plays, look at the effect he has. So what you've literally done is gone to the level of, like, well, technically, doesn't matter how good the 4 laners are. If there was no one killing any jungle camps and getting buffs, then they would lose. So therefore, if he does that, then they win. And when he does that more often, they tend to win more. Therefore, technically, you could sort of say he's the X factor in that team. Like, on a very extreme specific level, you're correct there. He has to do things like kill jungle camps and be alive and breathe air. You are absolutely correct. They could not win otherwise. But I put it to you, sir, that would apply to almost any other player in a team. So please explain what the real version is as to why he's the X factor.
Well, I don't have the statistics exactly on WE, but last year on EDG, both splits, so far this split in EDG, he's always had the highest kill participation on the team during like the regular seasons and the playoffs matches.
He's the fucking jungler. He's the guy who goes all over the map. He's supposed to initiate fights.
Even when he doesn't gank, though, he's like involved in the team fights. He initiates the team fights. He helps like create the zoning area effect, like with the Nunu. His Nunu is actually very good in team fighting. Like you don't typically necessarily think of Nunu being like this monster team fight champion, but he turns it into one. I don't know, like, I just have always been impressed with his team fighting, the way he's able to set up AD carries, and obviously he's had some of the best AD carries, but it works really well. And sometimes he's an extra damage threat, like he likes to play the Elise. They had that weird style where he used to play like Zed jungle, and obviously Insect was the Zed jungle, but they would prolong the laning phase and then he could be the secondary carry of the team, but like, not all jungles have the highest kill participation on the team. Like, this is actually a very true fact. And ClearLove is involved in most of, like, if he doesn't gank, you would think that, okay, up for grabs, anyone can have, like, the highest kill participation. Because if there's no, like, activity in the lanes early on, then perhaps, like, the guy who gets the most solo kills will have the highest kill participation. Perhaps, like, the people who are involved in the most skirmishes and he's just, like, farming and having no impact at all. But I think that like, it's relevant in terms of watching how ClearLove plays and the fact that he is involved in all of these fights and plays like a very fundamental role in them, and that's why I think that he's like deserves to be recognized as a great team fighter.
Okay, but you just went from jungler to team fighter there.
I agree with you. I agree with you about his team fighting skills. It's always been good. It's just when it comes to sometimes you need a player who actually like ganks in the early game, and he's been doing that this season. I agree that he has looked a lot better, but I mean, this was a really close call for them in this series, and like I said, I haven't seen the games yet, so I will watch them through this lens. But don't you think it's a little bit disturbing that he would regress like this during the playoffs?
I honestly think it would have been a 3-0 closeout if they hadn't picked that weird composition in the third game and then like let Spirit have Nidalee. They were probably shaken up by the third game. They almost won the fourth game, but they had like this throw at Baron. So it probably should have won in 3 or 4 games, but they weren't playing like themselves on more than just the fact that they had you. They were playing these compositions that they're not used to. Like the manager said, we decided to completely reinvent the wheel. It's like, okay, technically you is 4-1 in his competitive career on Kassadin. Like you can have the same type of pick compositions that you made around you. Like around Pawn. I mean, he might not perform the same role as Pawn to the same level, but you don't have to like change your champion picks completely and your approach to the game completely because you're subbing out this player necessarily. Like it would make more sense if you have everyone else doing something comfortable, I would think, but they didn't at all. Like their picks and bans were really weird.
Monty, you can't just skip over her point there. So ClearLove had the most kill participation, and this is leading to why he's a great jungler. What? Do you not have any comeback to that?
I never said he's a great jungler. I said he's a great player.
Oh, the semantics are actually giving me brain cancer right now. His role he plays is jungle. How can you be the greatest player without being a great jungler? I can't handle this.
I think it's probably the one exception where I would do that, just because I think I do rate his team fighting that highly. So, I don't know.
But okay, what about that explanation, Monty, about the kill participation?
I mean, it's great to have high kill participation as a jungler, but it also just depends on how your team plays. Like, you know, if you play a very reserved early game where the ganks aren't mattering, which, to be fair, back on the old days of WE, that is kind of what happened with them.
Yeah.
I can't handle this as well, though. Think about this for a second. So, the star players on Cacao teams are like, okay, Ryu was very good at one point in time. Score was like average at any point in time. Who have we got after that? Fucking Arrow. Okay, Rookie was good. There we go. We've got another good mid laner. So he's got a good mid laner at each point in time. Top laners, average to slightly above average at best. AD carries, average to occasionally above average. Not really going to go crazy on them. That's Cacao's career and what he's managed to do as his own player. Then we go over to ClearLove. We've got Prime, Wei Xiao, Messiah, Pawn, Death.
That's my argument.
Name. Come on,
with, Papa Smithy on Twitter. It must be nice to be ClearLove and have the best AD carry in the world 3 different times in your career on your goddamn team.
In their prime, no less.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Deft has gotten better since he's joined EDG.
Here we go. Here comes the break cancer again, Monty. See, you have to realise, Monty, what happened was it's because they play with ClearLove that they're so good, you know? Okay, yeah.
Well, if you watched the way they were early, like Deft played the same style he did on Samsung Blue, where he got like he just got camped in lane and gave up like early, or not necessarily camped, but would even have these like awkward half commits in lane, right? Where he would like try to go in and then he would think about it weird or whatever and back up and have this strange lane positioning and just like get killed. And that's a big factor as why they lost 2-0 to Snake early on, right? Is because first game they like really, really hard camped Deft and he went far behind. And then immediately their next set against LGD, ClearLove is ganking for Deft's lane a lot. Like Deft starts to do better and better in lane, and then eventually he gets to this point where he doesn't even need the ganks to like play more confidently to do these trades better. So I don't know. I don't know if it was like a confidence issue with Deft or whatever, but the fact that like the team is completely structured around Deft and making sure Deft first of all gets the laning phase and gets to the team fight phase, like there are so many aspects to securing Deft in this team. You have the wards and the roams from Mako. Like literally there's this trio of Chinese players that just move around the map. So the map pressure isn't just like ClearLove. It's the fact that if you're an enemy jungler playing against EDG, you have to expect to be counter ganked by like 2 players at minimum. And then so Mako will have the good vision control around Deft's lane and also roam effectively or 2v2 effectively. And then you have Pawn assassinating the jungler if he tries to go like over those wards. And then in the top lane you have Koro doing like these good teleports, and Koro has evolved as a player to the point where he can actually win lane. Like all last year he never won lane ever. So when there are like these 3v3 teleport trades in the bottom, like they can have a teleport advantage.
Monte, what is different then, based on what she's saying now, about how Blue used to use Deft when they had Spirit as his jungler? Is there something different about how that team was structured relative to what she's saying now, do you think?
I mean, I don't think Deft ever really got that much help from Spirit, because Spirit was mostly just running around counter ganking. That's kind of what he did. I think Spirit definitely has developed in China. I think Deft has developed as well, because he does have a much stronger laning phase these days. That's
see like the genius of what you just said there, Monte? You've kind of just unknowingly chopped the Gordian knot for us there, my friend, because the reason why he couldn't just camp Deft's lane is because he was playing the jungle role, so he had to be around the map ganking, doing things. If you have a player who actually doesn't play the jungle role, then he can just be like a second support for the bot lane and just be there 24/7, just be coming in all the time. And then it's weird when you have a 3v2 at bot, it's hard to actually get those kills in lane, I've found,
He doesn't just gank bottom. Again, like the thing about EDG is that it's in the fact that they have like 3 consistent roamers, I feel. Like Koro is roaming, Mako is roaming, and they roam as a duo, and they like are constantly ganking for both Pawn and Deft, or they're counter ganking well because they have the vision set up. Like it's just this weird non-laning phase style.
Monte, okay, actually, you didn't watch that series, so I guess that's not such a good question for you. Okay, yeah. Kelsey, how much was the series in terms of the WE side of this? How much was it like the form that they'd had at the IEM tournament, where even since then they've had a good win rate, admittedly in this era when people weren't necessarily playing properly? How much of that is like they are a much better team than they were with the old lineup, and maybe they're capable of better things in the future? What do you think on that tip?
I think whenever I ask people why is WWE a good team, the immediate answer I get, well, Spirit is just so good, but that doesn't make them a good team.
No, that was already the case when they were a really bad team.
But the thing is that when we saw them start winning games before they went to IEM, like they 2-0'd IG the week before, they went 1-1 with Vici the week before. It's because Spirit, like suddenly these champions opened up. Rek'Sai wasn't banned every game. He could have Nidalee, and he started to really, really perform really well with these aggressive junglers. So, Spirit for me has always been the key to this team's success. And I do agree that there is some boost, especially in bottom lane, because STYZ just had a really, really bad first half of the season, and Mystic has been performed like not as this like crazy star, but at least to this consistent, solid level. And then you have Shia.
So Mystic's been a shot in the arm, you could say.
I mean,
just keep going, just roll with them. You're supposed to roll with them, Kelsey. These aren't real statements. These aren't actual analytical statements, okay?
And Shia, and I think Ninja stepped up considerably before he was benched, but obviously they can't have
No, he stepped down. That's the correct one. You know?
Yeah.
He stepped the fuck out the room, and then they got much better.
Let's be real about Ninja before he was benched. He had some good games on Ezreal. It wasn't a world earth-shattering performance right here. I mean, I think that Xia is definitely an upgrade no matter how you look at it.
I mean, you can look at it like that, but Xia's team fighting is awful. Like, I don't know. And his laning phase, like, he loses to Korn. I don't understand. He has good laning phases, but
but he beat the fuck out of Kuro, didn't he?
He has a very limited champion pool. It just happens to be that his champion pool is better than Ninja's right now. I think is like the major difference in terms of their performances. Like, obviously, Ninja hasn't had this
career. I just see a higher upside. I just see a higher ceiling to Xia.
No, I mean, maybe, but like Xia had a terrible career prior to the split, and Ninja had a terrible career prior to the split in terms of like their individual performances. So.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna say, rain over. Okay, anyway, so continuing on that point. So, obviously, I set the initial conditions of this discussion about that series, EDGWE, over the fact that the first 4 games weren't even the real EDG. But the problem is, there is some weight to the fact that this is a worrying sign, because going forwards, will they even be able to use Pawn in any of these games?
I don't. It's been very vague. Like, the doctors supposedly said that he has 2 months recovery time, but I don't know if that means he can't play.
I've read enteritis, back pain, and wrist pain now. Which one of these is it? Which malady does he?
It's something to do with his waist, like his waist area. That's all I know for sure. If it's enteritis, it's severely complicated enteritis that would need like some kind of surgery, which I don't even know if that exists. But that's the most common answer I've heard. I don't actually know specifically what it is, but I get waist injury.
EDG like, without Pawn.
Yeah, EDG without Pawn. I think. Again, a big factor is that they weren't practicing with you. If they have some practice with you going into semifinals, I think they'll look much better. I don't know. I think it'll be a much closer. Obviously, it'll be a much closer series than it would have been with Pawn. But I think that EDG was just like at this level where they were so far ahead that if they do play their style and are able to integrate you a little bit better, they can still end up going to MSI. I don't know.
I mean, that's really one of the few times that the luxury of this stupid Chinese system's worked out, where one of the players they had on the bench was one of the best mid laners of all of China last year, who literally just sat there, and now they can literally put him in their lineup when they can't use their own star mid laner. So if they have to use you the whole way, I want you to like speculate. If they had to use you in every game from here on out in the playoffs, can they still win LPL?
I think obviously their biggest threat is going to be IG. I think IG right now is probably the second best Chinese team. Again, with the caveat that I haven't seen OMG and LGD play seriously. But in terms of, I think that they have some of the best like talent levels per teams because Chinese rosters.
Okay, I've got to just wait. Pause your thought there, please. Remember what you were thinking there. Monty, I have to bring you in again. I've renamed this show. This isn't Summoning Insight anymore. This is Chinese Cognitive Dissonance with Monty and Kelsey. And I don't agree with either person's perspective, by the way. I just like to bring the two worlds together and hear them grind. So, Monty, there's a statement that Kelsey thinks she gets away with these things on Twitter, but I record them all. I keep them all going on a little loop in my mind. I have a dossier on people.
I need to be called out. It's good.
So you know where I'm going on this one, okay? She made a statement, Monty, that said something like, I think she said that there was only 2 teams in all of LPL that had more talent on their starting lineup than IG. Was that the statement?
Yeah.
There's only 2 teams. So wait a second, Monty.
Like in terms of having someone who's relatively good, like
position for position. I get it. Man for man. That's the point. Yeah, man for man, not overall. But here's the thing, okay, Monty. So we're gonna go ahead before she answers. We're gonna assume one out of the 2 must be EDG, right? So we'll take EDG off the table. So we've got 1 team left, Monty. Now I know what you're thinking. Well, it's easy, right? It's OMG. Okay, here's where it's gonna get interesting. LGD exists as well. So which is it? Which is IG more talented man for man than OMG or LGD? Kelsey, please tell us now.
You can't ignore the fact that LGD has the worst jungler in LPL. Like, that's the problem. I'm saying the average level. I'm not saying that, like, IG's talent is, they have one of the best players in every position.
No, man for man, but yeah.
But I'm saying, like, the average talent level of each player in each role is higher than most teams.
See, this is where I need to pause a second again. Because everyone who's watching now might be just listening to Kelsey. They don't know much about Chinese League of Legends, so they're thinking, okay, she's probably right. Monty, let me just bear in mind what she's saying here. Remember, who was the AD carry of IG? Kid. Who was the AD carry of LGD? Imp. You have to realise, by the way, here's why I have to inform you. Kelsey and Froscore and all those guys think Kid is the shit. They think he's amazing, by the way. You know Kittles, that support, who you're probably thinking, oh, I didn't even... Forgot he even existed. Yeah, Kitties. Forgot he even existed. No, they also think he's fucking awesome. Okay? Zzitai, top player. Well, you have to realise, they think Zzitai is like the most talented player ever in China. He can do everything. He can play any champion. If he has a bad game, it's like the same thing. Oh, he was sandbagging in his own career. He's just messing around in that game. He's so talented. They've taken the whole potential thing with IG to the fucking limits.
Lumping me in with Raz.
Oh, I'm lumping everyone in. I'm lumping you all in, motherfuckers. That's why you don't get three people together and do top 20 lists when you don't all agree on the same philosophy. I'm teaching you a lesson, valuable lesson right now. So anyway, my point here is, yeah, okay, I know Monty's going to agree with Cacao. I know he's going to agree with Rookie, but it's these other three players I want to find out what he thinks of. So we're comparing. Even if it's Acorn, Monty, Acorn to Zzitai top lane, Imp to Kid bot lane,
and PYL
to Kid.
No way.
So,
LGD's way better.
Man for man.
Yeah, like I think LGD has more top 4 players on their team, but the fact that their jungler is TVQ, like that completely. I'm not even arguing that any of the players on LGD or on Invictus Gaming are better than, like, obviously Acorn's better than Zzitai. Obviously, Imp is better than Kid. Obviously, PYL is better than Kitties. But the fact that I'm saying that, like, the average level isn't brought down by the fact that they have, like, a 12th place player in their role. Like, this is the issue, is that they're the only lineup that doesn't have, like, just this, like, Vici Gaming has Hatong.
My brain hurts so much right now because here. Okay, I'll cut this discussion very quickly to the core. Okay, essentially all you did was make the mistake of saying it was man for man. If you'd have said average, then what you've just said makes sense, which is that the average would be brought down so much by the jungler of LGD that on average the skill level would be lower. But if it's man for man, then LGD has 4 out of the 5, therefore they win.
Okay, poor semantics. So.
No, I'm just wondering because the reason I'm going to go into this is because we're going to talk now about VG versus IG. Mm-hmm. Now, here's the thing. You just said there, well, you know, they're the second best team. Whoa. Let's just go back in time before that series began. Oh, what was everyone saying there, Kelsey? Oh, I think that VG are the second best team in China, and they're gonna make it.
People, okay.
You're all up together. You will all be when the revolution comes, and you will all be against the wall.
Watch China Talk, and all.
I will punish the sons for the sins of their fathers unto 7 generations. No, anyway. So what? So you were one of the few people who stood out against that. Then
no, all of China Talk said that IG was gonna win. So. I don't know. Like, maybe you're conflating me with LOL Esports power rankings now. Like, that is completely unnecessary.
I want to move into something else too, because you think that IG is the team that is going to, you know, make the big difference here in terms of, you know, upsetting the EDG when perhaps they don't have Pod if he doesn't make another superhero performance in terms of coming back into these games. But if we remember the Demacia Cup, isn't it enough? Because IG got totally owned in the Demacia Cup finals. Like, it wasn't even remotely close. So I think you is good enough to carry EDG through this season anyway.
I think that EDG will probably still go to MSI. I think IG will be their strongest, like, competition. But I think that given, like, a couple days for EDG to practice and realize, okay, we don't have to pick stupid stuff with just because we have a different mid laner, I think that they'll be able to win still. So
I mean, for context, for people from the West, guys, this isn't like when Bjergsen had to go and renew his passport and they put Reggie in and they still managed to win the odd game. We're talking about like a guy who was a world-class mid laner, okay?
And I think that if you started for a team, like even the fact that he hasn't been practicing competitively for a while, if he went to an LPL team like, say, Vici Gaming, I don't know, maybe, he would instantly be probably like top 5. So, I mean, it's not like he's a terrible player.
Okay, but here's the thing. As we just saw with King against Snake, on paper, Snake are the team that have the breakout star players who everyone's talking about, oh, Flandre's so good, Crystal's so good.
Why are you lumping me in with these people? I don't think...
I haven't even finished my point yet. People's perception is that Snake have these star players, these breakouts, etc. Meanwhile, King are the team that are supposed to win with smarts, using their brains, using vision, using the map against the enemy. So in this particular sense, VG was billed as the smart team. They're the smartest team, and they have obviously they have the vision duo that comes from Korea. Why couldn't Smarts outskill this incredible skill level man for man of IG? Why could Brains not overcome Brawn in this series?
Well, first of all, I think people do underrate Invictus Gaming's.
Oh boy, they've got the best players and the best strategy, and everything's just the best.
I think the problem is that you're in this position where you either have these really talented teams or these really smart teams for most of LPL.
Okay.
And IG has like got a reasonable mix of both. So like you have EDG, but then everything else, first of all, in my mind, you have EDG and everything else is like a huge drop off. So when I say Invictus Gaming is the second best team in China, I don't mean, oh, maybe like on a good day they could contest this team and take games off of them in like this epic series. No, I feel like there's just this huge gap. And so when you drop off from EDG and then you're in this group where there's actually relative closeness between VG Gaming, Invictus Gaming, potentially OMG and LGD, and then Snake even, when they're not playing like idiots, and it's relatively close between those teams, but I think IG comes out ahead of that. But the thing with Invictus Gaming is that I consider them more of like their picks and bans are structured more to counter the other teams' like natural playstyle, because a lot of their players have like fairly good champion pools. They might not be like super good on every single champion, but they can play them like at a reliable, like consistent rate. Like Zzitai has always had an understanding of champions that allows him to play new picks faster than a lot of other players. So I think the role swap worked for him because of that. So he can bring out a bunch of champions to supplement their style, especially as opposed to Pokemon, the player that they were playing before, who could only really play Maokai. And you have Rookie and Kakao, who are going to do really well in that regard. Kid has been like this somewhat, like, I always feel like Kid and Kitties are kind of like the San of OMG bot lane in terms of like they're a little bit underrated because they don't make these huge plays, but they're going to play like consistent games. They're not going to lose every game. If they need to carry, like Kid can on occasion step up and be like the primary carry of the team, and I think that he played well in one of the games where Vici Gaming was looking to make fast rotations with Sivir, and he just like kept pushing out, like that bottom lane just kept pushing out the waves to try to keep them in lane. So I think that it works out for them in a sense that they're able to play a lot of different champions so that they can tailor some of their strategy and picks and bans to either play the other team's natural style or to play against the other team's natural style. And we actually saw a series and listening to the cast with Papa Smithy and Pastry Time, and they were like surprised that Invictus Gaming was actually able to get the superior rotations over Vici Gaming in many instances. So, and get like free objective off of them in some cases. And then obviously when you got into a situation where you're 5v5ing against Chatong, Invictus Gaming could win that pretty easily as well.
Do you actually buy this notion? I ask that naively here. That's just me playing the role of a host here, by the way, Kelsey. I don't actually ask that with any genuine feeling behind it. Do you buy the notion that Zzitai is going to be this awesome? He's going to be the top laner here on out, and it's going to work out really well? Because the funny thing is, before he moved to the top lane, I legitimately used to think of Zzitai as like the Soaz of the mid lane. Like, he was a talented player, clearly, but part of his talent was he could have the cheese pick. He could have the weird pick that no one had even played, maybe even mid lane. So I can understand why that'll work for a time at top lane, but is he going to be just this? Is he going to be the top laner from here on out, and this is the way forward for IG?
The thing about Zzitai, and this is the part where you're probably just going to like roll your eyes and just.
I would never do anything like that. Continue.
Just sit here and like surf the internet for the next 5 minutes, so you don't have to listen to me saying this. I think Zzitai started playing at 14, and he hasn't been a super mature player for most of his career. So he's kind of had a lot of these like goof off games where he hasn't really had to apply himself just because he does understand champions naturally. But apparently when he was benched for Rookie, he was like actually really upset by this because he wasn't just going to be able to coast through his career in this regard. And so he started practicing like really hard. And he really wanted back on the team, and he wanted to do the rotation, but obviously the one time they put in him and Save, they got O2'd. And so he started...
I'm sure Save was like, cheers, buddy. That was my chance right there. You fucking blew it. If you just
be
played
fair-
well, I might have a career left now, bro.
To be
And he's
fair,
like, don't
Sage
worry,
did actually
I'll take
pretty
your
terribly
career.
too.
Fair enough.
But so then Zzitai started learning top lane and playing top lane, and like by all accounts, might be the time in his career where he's been the most serious. So I don't know if he's going to be some great top laner, but he's, for the limited amount of time that he's been playing top lane, and the fact that there are like some really good top laners in China right now, as opposed to just like going and sometimes PvD. I'm fairly impressed that he was able to make this transition, but I don't know if he's going to be like some great, amazing, oppressive top laner.
I don't think he will be. I was going out there and say that. I mean, I loved Zzitai back on the old IG. I loved his zany picks and his giant champion pool, but to me, he's never really shown that spark of decision making that goes along with mechanics or a wide champion pool to boost him into, learning top lane, which is arguably more complicated in terms of decision making than mid lane right now, because you can't just style on people with mechanics. You actually have to use your brain during a lane swap.
Yeah, and he did have trouble in lane swap initially. I think his lane swap play has gotten much better because he doesn't just like go ham into the 2v2. And I was actually really worried about this series because I feel like VG Gaming usually plays the lane swapping really well, and they deny the top laner really hard, but he was always at least even with carry. And I think that part of this was VG Gaming didn't get as much of the optimal lane swap situation where they wanted because IG read them a little bit better, but I thought that was going to be like a big make or break point for IG, and he did perform well. So
What do you think this means for Mata and Dandy then? Does this have any implications for does this mean that VG will change players, or
probably, but is
this an issue?
I say that because most rosters will change players. Last year, the only roster that remained the same all year was Edward Gaming, and there were these really drastic role swaps. I don't think VG Gaming has a very good history for smart roster changes at all.
To be fair, if you had to get 2 Korean players after Worlds, I would have gotten Dandy and Mata and put them together on the same team too.
I mean, in theory, but then they didn't change their other. They decided that the player they really needed was Vasily as the AD carry. They changed their mid laner from their starting team to their B team mid laner, and they kept their top laner, who was probably a strong part of the team in LSPL.
So the depressing part about that is they went the wrong way there. If they'd have leave Vasily in America, get Xiao Wei Xiao to be the mid laner, now we might be cooking with gas, Instead, you got the guy who fucking sucks, and we put another guy in the AD carry. That's no better, is it? You haven't made anything better there.
I think part of it was that if you followed VG Gaming's manager's Weibo, during the off season, they they were really sure that Cool was going to join VG Gaming. They were really sure. They said, I think we're at this point where we're signing the contract, all this other stuff, and Cool stayed with OG. So
No, Monte has experience with that sort of scenario happening. You base all your plans around a player's going to join. I mean, how can he turn us down? Yeah, fuck. Now I have to get some inferior Asian to play this role. Oh god, let's just try my best. Put on a positive face. This could work out. It could work out. We could still win with rotations and good vision control. I think this could still work. I think it's savable, guys. Oh, it went to shit in the first round of the playoffs. So yeah, anyway, totally different story there, Monty. That didn't happen to you like that at all.
It didn't.
No. So let's go forwards then. So there's only one series left to be played, which you already touched on, OMG versus LGD, Kelsey. In this series, won't your dreams of China kind of be crushed if LGD beats OMG?
And at this point, there are no dreams of China. All the rosters are hybrid anyway, so.
Well, OMG.
OMG is the one surviving,
hence
possibly.
the dream of China. Okay, you following here?
But is this their time to shine? Is this where they take off the mask that they've been wearing all season?
I have no idea what's going to happen in this series. Like, I
have no idea either.
I have no idea. I think that if you look at how these teams played before, OMG might have a slight edge just because, like, they have a jungler. And the OMG also likes to play fast push a lot early on, and LGD tends to lose more if they just get completely snowballed on in the early game because they like to win by pushing out the waves. They intentionally almost agree to put themselves behind so that they can take team fights later on with the waves pushing in their favor, but that doesn't work as well if you just get fast pushed on and the lead is like really huge. So I think in theory, if OMG played like they did early and LGD played like they did early, and OMG also tends to like lose the first game but come back, whereas LGD will like win their first game and then like get figured out and lose their second game. So going off of that best of two like adaptation type style, OMG might have a best of 5 edge. But again, like this is stuff that all happened like in the first half of the regular season, and I have no, like, the second half is completely...
I mean, OMG's just been progressively going further and further and downhill. Their picks don't make sense, their rosters don't make sense. Nothing about this team makes sense.
So, yeah, I have no idea.
Like, I have a bold prediction. I think LGD's going to win.
Okay. And I wouldn't be surprised.
I actually agree with you. I agree with you.
Because the problem is you look at OMG and nothing makes sense about, like, everything. Like, the lineup should be better, the performance should be better than it is. You look at even the games they win, and it's like usually just someone going completely ham. It's not like they ever win by just picking a team apart incisively. So, as bizarre as it sounds, yeah, the other team doesn't have a jungler. That's absolutely correct. But I don't even know if that will matter. I think it'll just be like fucking team fights all over the place 24/7. And LGD can win those. That's not inconceivable.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually ultimately LGD has better team fighting, but I think the lane play, like, it depends on how much of an initiative OMG takes in laning phase, probably.
I mean,
and I'm not saying that just because for all the bad things that happened that I explained in the intro, like Tip losing that series, SK losing that series, the team in CSGO losing, I feel like in a small way it would all be redeemed if Zzitai had like cool, go-going and leveling, and then he got his shit canned in the fucking first round and kicked the fuck out by a team with no jungler. That would in some ways win some of that back for me. I would be euphoric, I have to admit, Kelsey. But that's not the only reason that I'm betting on this now, okay?
I think the other interesting thing about this matchup for me is that Imp has shown considerably more dimensions as a player since coming to China, and I think he's, like, his improvements, people talk about deft and spirit, but his improvements are somewhat overlooked just because of the way that, like, how much PYL roams. He's actually 2v1ing sometimes and playing, like, much more safe. Whereas before, I feel like he didn't have as much of a check on, like, when to go in and other stuff and, like, maintaining his own positioning. So, I don't know. I think Imp has impressed me a little bit.
Didn't everyone shit on him during the middle of the season, though? As in all the analysts said, like, oh, he was just started off strong, but now it's gone to shit. It's not that great anymore.
I mean, maybe. I don't know if I heard people talk about Imp like that or not. I mean, it's possible.
I mean, I only talked to Frostgirl, remember, so you have to realize, you know.
Well, I think I watched that episode of Incoming Aggression where she said she feels like Imp is getting screwed over more than other people on LGD just because PYL and Whalers do roam so often. So, and like, in
that's
theory,
okay. I mean, here's the thing, is that if you're such a world-class AD carry and you can handle yourself in that situation, because PYL is great. I love watching PYL play. He really does set up things really nicely. So if he takes a hit, it should be less meaningful in theory.
Yeah, I think, and LGD is still able to win more effectively. Like, when they do get the 2v2, like, Imp and PYL will still have these monster lanes, right? And they'll still do really well in the 2v2. In theory, LGD has, like, one of the best 2v2s in LPL, but they don't win because there's less pressure on the map overall. So,
okay, there was this initial scenario where after IEM, everyone just hopped on the bandwagon of EDG. They were like, right, GE lost, so I guess now we've got to go all in on EDG because they're the team that's super dominant in their region. It's still an Asian region. They've got some Koreans. Like, we're still checking a lot of the boxes here, guys. Like, that's the new hype train. Monte here was still in that sort of like post IEM depression where he was like vulnerable and he was open to suggestion in this sense. I tried to pull him back out of that by telling him how good GE Tigers were and how they'd recover and Korea would still remain dominant, but he was starting to give up, like, nah, China's good now, I guess. Like, MSI. So isn't this a problem now that EDG might not even win China, and therefore what happens to MSI?
Well, as I said, like, EDG is infinitely above the rest of China, and watching SKT and GE, I actually think they're very, like, those three teams are pretty close in terms of how they perform in their professional matches. Obviously, I have no access to the Scrim data, whatever.
But we're talking about EDG that has to use you, though.
Yeah, and I'm saying that EDG, I don't think that if they go to MSI with you, and unless, like, they immediately find that synergy and are able to play, like, just as well as they did, I don't think that they'll win.
See, this is where I get my classic Lord Loco style Lord bet win, where me and Froscorin have that bet where I bet that GE Tigers would win MSI and she bet that EDG, and then I can do the Lord Loco where it's like, but we didn't have any conditions over what players would be on EDG, and then I have to be like, I was right, you were wrong. So then, that's the way you have to do it. You have to have no class when winning whatsoever. Yeah.
So in that case, like, I technically am owed a Lord bet win for SK versus Taipei Assassins, right?
Yeah, sure, why not? I'll take that, because it also means that Raven, who predicted that, like, Taipei Assassins would get out of the group, has to, as long as those results remain the same, that means he has to live that eternal shame for the rest of his life, and now can never again to claim to be some master predictor, because he doubled down way too hard and got bodied completely.
He got, like, it went to his head after he predicted
that's like the ultimate hubris
odds.
right there.
Yeah.
He actually thought he was the prophet at that point in time. But anyway, being as no one watching the show has any clue who that is, because he actually just secretly knows everything but doesn't ever put any news articles out, we'll move on to the next topic. So we've done China in general there. Let's go on. Fuck it, let's just go over what everyone's been waiting for, like the meat of the show, if you will.
Oh boy.
Let's go to the European... No, I'm joking. Just the NA. Go to NA region. It would be a better troll if we started talking about Europe for the next half an hour. No. So we're going to talk about the NA LCS playoffs. Oh boy. So we'll start with C9 versus Liquid, I think. That was a good series. What happened in this series, Monty? Because it looked like, okay, C9's going to get unseated. Liquid's got the goods. They've won those first two games. What were the first two games like? How would you characterize the first two games?
I mean, I think it was just a lot of the. If we look at the picks and bans, I mean, they did get a lot of picks to set up Piglet to do really quite well. And let me pull all the picks and bans up real quick. But I mean, first off, the Draven pick was super risky by C9 in game one. They were trying to go all in on that sort of composition, and it just didn't end up panning out very well for them, right? But that's kind of a throwaway. If you get that comp rolling and if you get it snowballing, you're going to be in a very good position. And then Phoenix pulls out this Azir in the second game, and basically Liquid does overcommit to a bunch of the fights, and they're able to clean up that game as well because they don't respect kind of the crowd control. But by then, C9 dials it back, and we see Liquid start playing Juggernaut without another damage threat, and then they kind of get in line. And after that, it's just much better compositions coming out of C9 and very low damage threat comps out of TL, and they just don't recover from that.
Yeah, I think I really liked Team Liquid's first comps. Like, I especially liked the second one where I felt like maybe this is a little bit more difficult to execute than Cloud9's comp, but it has a lot of upside with the new synergy with like the Azir pick and the even in theory Hecarim, and you have
it's good
high mobility. Like, I really love Hecarim Sivir comps. They're like really fun to watch. But then just after that, they didn't put a damage threat in mid lane, I don't think, for the rest of the series. And I think that C9 read that really well. Like, they first picked Hecarim. They were able to constantly get
it was Lulu or got Lulu.
Mm-hmm. So
let me ask you this then. The storyline of that series was like Liquid wins the first two, not like total stomps or anything, but like convincingly, like it's looking good. Game 3 pick ban screen comes up, and Cloud9 completely allow Oh my lord, everyone's favourite term, Le Juggernaut, is here, boys. Except, what happened in this series was, Liquid taught us, as a lot of teams have been teaching us recently, that you shouldn't keep calling stuff Juggernaut if you don't actually understand how the comp works. Like, yes, pick Lulu, you're right, you got it so far. Pick Janet, 2 out of 2. And then pick the Kog'Maw. Yeah, great. And that's where it ends. There's nothing more to a Juggernaut. Oh, wait a second. No, actually, the team who does that most effectively has like a really good assassin mid laner who that also helps.
Or a damage top, like...
But that's where everyone's falling down, Monty, because it looks like, oh, they've done the comp here, and then it doesn't work.
It's actually gotten to the point where people think that if you have an additional damage threat, it's not an effective protect the cog or protect or Juggernaut composition. Like if you have additional
these effective, especially Rumble or LeBlanc, they help you get over the hump to 30 minutes where Kog'Maw comes online, because you have to have something in the mid game to do damage, otherwise you get rolled.
I would actually argue that it's less of a Juggernaut composition if you have a tanky front line, because I think that completely removes like the point of the Kog'Maw as like the high mobility front line. So.
And also, the funny thing is, if you invest everything under the Kog'Maw, the whole point is to just punish the picks after that, right?
Right. So.
Also, what's great about this series is all the people who were crying about the new tank meta and about how hard it is, because it's true, if someone gets uber tanked late game, you're just only damage on your team, it can look like it's impossible to kill them, Monty. But this was a great example in this series of how you can have the super tanks, but you still have to be able to actually do damage to other champions to kill them. Just soaking up damage yourself doesn't kill. Like, Thornmail isn't so effective, it literally kills everyone attacking you. Like, you have to actually auto-attack them as well. So this series was, like, trust in Lulu and you will be betrayed so hard. What do you think of all these Lulu picks?
I think Lulu is good as a top laner in Juggernaut, or as a mid laner when you have, like I said, a Rumble or some other damage pick. You have to have the Lulu. The Lulu is fine. The Lulu is not the problem. It's the problem that you have to have something else with the Lulu, or it just gets horrible.
Like some of those fights in those last 3 games, Liquid would get a good fight in like the latter part of the game, but they could never kill all the people in the fights. It was pointless. They were just getting shreked.
Yeah, exactly. And they know this too because they played the Corki mid up against CLG, and they did really well because Corki with the Luden's Echo was able to poke them off of objectives until the Kog'Maw came online.
And the other thing is that like Cloud9, I think, knew almost that as soon as they let the Lulu up that they would come up with the Juggernaut comp, because I guess this is the Kog'Maw comp to protect the Kog'Maw composition, because I guess this is their instant win composition and scrims, apparently, because they first picked the Hecarim, which I think is usually really good at getting to the back line. So like if you can get the Hecarim consistently to the Kog'Maw every game, then you have almost no recourse for action.
Ignoring the result, Monty, like don't think in hindsight here. When you saw that pick ban phase where they let all the parts through, it's like, what could be happening here? It's like if you're a dog, okay, and you're sat in your box at the corner of the door, and then the owner goes over and he starts putting his shoes on. Wait a minute, he's putting his shoes on. Starts to put his coat on. Oh my god, he's putting his coat on. It's to walk. He's going for a walk. He doesn't have to get the lead out for, you're going for a walk at that point in time, Was it actually a mistake to let them get the Kog'Maw third? Like, well, I pretty much telegraphed what I'm doing here. I've got the Lulu. I've got the other one.
They had to know what was coming after the CLG game too, because it was such a commanding win. And at that point too, I think that it's a reasonable composition to use at that point in time, because think about it, you're Team Liquid, you're up 2-0. Piglet carried the crap out of you in game 1. Why not just go for this? You have a lot of faith in him at that point in time. I don't think the idea was the problem. I think the
was it a mistake on the Cloud9 side to let it through? Like, should they have just tried to hijack it halfway through and the soul was emerging?
I think that they had the strong answers to it already. Look, they were matching poke for poke with the Corki versus the Kog'Maw, and they had tons of engage with Hecarim, Sejuani, and Nautilus. I think they had a great comp to deal with it. And especially in Juggernaut, Nautilus is a great counter because he actually has to walk up into the front line, which means you can just ult him. Just ult that fucker.
What do you think, Monty, about the fact that an emerging storyline... Remember what I said, Monty, on the last episode? I said that part of the reason Link played terribly was that he made Phoenix look like a superstar. Well, after the first 2 games, you remember the storyline, Monty? It was like, wow, this Phoenix guy, he requires all these target bans. You know, he's destroying people. And then the rest of the series unfolded. Then he showed us, as is beautiful about a best of 5, what he was really capable of. He regressed to the mean. He came back to Earth. You know, what did you think about Phoenix overall? He seemed to have some issues in some of those games at the end.
Yeah, especially at the end. I think that we saw some good quirky play from him in the playoffs. I think we saw some good Azir play from him. Because his Lissandra was okay, but otherwise he was not really carrying these games once some of these champions got banned out. Once the Vlad was banned out, you know? I'm just not sure how big his champion pool is or how viable it is in the end.
Well, we'll never find out, except for next split. So, Kelsey, what did you think overall of Liquid's performance? I mean, like, they were close to winning the series, so what's your takeaways from the series?
I mean, I thought that they had really good execution first 2 games. They played really well overall in those sets, but just you could read them from their picks and bans. It was almost like they were overconfident and they felt that this type of composition, maybe with the Corki or without the Corki, just continuously worked for them in Scrim, so it would work eventually. And they fixated too much on protecting the Kog'Maw, but I think that potentially they've learned their lesson and could evolve more going forward into the next split and will look like a better team than they did this split.
You know, sometimes in a match, I mean, I realize this will be breaking news to a lot of fans of League of Legends, but you can actually lose the series and have played both A, very well, and B, better than your opposing player at the same position. I know it's a crazy concept. It's like I'm coming up with, like, I'm breaking new ground here. But actually, when I watched that series, the one guy on Team Liquid who I felt really sorry for was I Will Dominate. Because I actually thought he made almost no mistakes in the whole series. Even in the games they were losing, he was making plays constantly that gave him a chance to have a win a fight or gave them a favourable engage or zoned someone up. I thought he actually had a fucking awesome series this time around. Thoughts, anyone?
I was impressed with him for, I think, the first 2 games. I didn't watch him as closely the next games because I think I was just always watching Piglet because of the fact that they were playing with these Piglets into compositions. And I think that Dominate is a pretty solid jungler overall. So I would agree with that.
What do you think, Monty? Am I overhyping it at all?
I think you are overhyping it a little bit, but I think that he definitely showed up and did what he could in this series in order to like stem the bleeding, especially in the last few games. But in the end, he, in one of those 3 games, he was on Nunu, which is difficult to make plays with. I think game 4 he did fine. And I mean, they just didn't show up at all in game 5 pretty much. I think at that point they were already pretty tilted. But
look, Monty, we will get later on in the show to the reasons why it's not satisfying to see carry junglers play Nunu. But aside from that, we'll continue on this series here. So, in terms of the actual, like, how much of it is like tilt on Team Liquid? How much of it is like Cloud9's clutch and they find a way and they find the answers? I mean, the narratives were both playing out there. So which one actually won out?
I think Cloud9 being clutch won out in this series overall because they show why they're good, that they can adapt, that they can see these strategies coming. And this was what I was worried about when I said that C9 would win this series over TL, because I knew that the same pick and ban mistakes were not going to be repeated by Cloud9. And I think that Cloud9 is strong at team fighting, strong in the ways that CLG wasn't, so there weren't going to be these big advantages, and C9 would close the series.
That makes sense. I think when you match up Team Liquid and Cloud9, they have similar strengths and weaknesses, but Cloud9 historically has been better at team fighting, whereas I feel like you have this situation where Team Liquid has just only recently kind of developed team fighting prowess. I also think that, again, I made a comment when I was watching this game after the 3rd game that Team Liquid wasn't going to fall into like this pick ban phase rut again, so I thought they could potentially take the series, but it showed that Cloud9 had better adaptation on the fly in their pick and ban phase than Team Liquid did overall.
The thing is, I mean, this series did make me realize the obvious answer, which was that Piglet was the problem, because Keith is actually undefeated in 5th games of semi-finals of LCS.
God.
So they should have flown. They should have done a pawn. They should have flown Latukan in. They should have been like, "My people need me," and then he just sits down and plays and carries the game, and the Disney movie is completed. And actually, they get to the finals and they unseat Cloud9, and all the storylines play out. That's all that matters, you know. What about? Does the fact that Cloud9 came so close to being eliminated make you feel, as without doing a spoiler for the next series, which we all know who won that, does it concern you about their chances to actually win the league after seeing that, Monty? How close it was?
Yes, of course it does. They picked like an all AD composition at one point, and that was one of the reasons why they were having such trouble, especially that first game against Double Frozen Hearts. I think that there's going to be. I definitely think that we're going to see TSM win the league.
What do you think, Kelsey?
I agree. I think that TSM showed surprising understanding of their opponent in the second series, and if they can replicate that kind of understanding against Cloud9, then they should win.
Was there anything else key about this? Oh yeah, there was another great line as well, which was, first of all, when it got to the 5th game, like, Voyboy had a great tweet where he said, like, this is triggering my PTSD. And then secondly, he actually had a great follow-up after the game where he pointed out that in, like, in the history of Curse and Liquid, they are, like, 0-9 on Lulu. It feels like Lulu, Monty, is the champion where, obviously, it can do so much, so you can masterfully use it and have this finesse and dominate an opponent with it. But it feels like if you play that champion badly, you're going to regret it so fucking hard. It's so few champions I can think of in all those positions.
I mean, it's a rough one. It does take a lot of finesse, and I think if you're going to build, if you're going to have a utility-based solo laner, like a utility caster, or basically a support, what we use the word support for, you better have a very good idea about how to play it and how you're going to flesh out the composition around it. And I have been saying for months that Juggernaut is insanely difficult to run if you're not super, super good at it, and people try and use it, they don't understand the weapon that they are wielding.
Whereas the difference is, someone like Dyrus does know how to use Lulu, because he's like, well, my whole life is getting dived top lane, so I'm going to pop that W on myself, I'm going to wild growth out here, I'm going to get back to that tower. I just saved a flash, which I will need in 2 more minutes when they come back again to kill me. Like, that's how you use Lulu top lane, okay, guys? You don't use it the way that you guys are using it. So, moving on, we've come to the part of the show that everyone's been waiting for. Drum roll, everyone. Okay, so Monty, you stand here charged with the crime of incorrectly predicting a video game result. How do you plead?
Guilty on many different accounts.
Okay, I judge you to be a traitor to America as a country, the founding fathers, and you are sentenced to death. Death by 1,000 cuts, by 1,000 tweets, Monty, by the rubbing of salt into your wounds. Okay, so let me ask Kelsey first. Let's see if we can get her in on this.
Okay.
Did you actually say before the series that Tip was going to win?
I don't know if I said it publicly, but I thought they were going to win. So
see, that's I like that. That's honest there. She could have just lied and be like, well, I can neither confirm or deny that. I never made a public statement on the matter. I simply allow games to play out. I personally think you shouldn't make predictions until all the facts have been in and the game's been played out. Like that classic rhetoric. You know, Monty, that's one of my favourite fan rhetorics that I see. It's repeated quite often as well. It's like, why are you wasting time doing that? Why don't you just wait till the game's been played? Yeah, predictions don't work that well when you do that, I found, you know. They don't really have a place almost, you know. And you're actually allowed to make a prediction before, to watch the game and comment on it while it's happening. And then you're still allowed afterwards to make a comment. Like, there's actually no rule barring that. So I'm trying to sort of like make a career out of doing all those 3 parts, you know. And I think it's working out so far. But again, as always, we love your feedback. So if you want to send feedback into the show, the address is on the bottom of the screen. Write it on a postcard and put it into the garbage can. It'll get to me, don't worry. I have like a secret, like an sleeper agent network that works within the trash in America, wherever you might be from as a fan, and they get those postcards to me. So just write down all your thoughts, dreams, hopes, why TSM's the best, and it'll get to me, guys. And I will and when I can make this promise, all of them that get to me, I will definitely take on board everything said in them and change the show in accordance with your wishes. Every single one that gets to me, I promise you guys. Okay. So anyway, moving on. We've baited the fans enough now. We actually have to talk about the series now. So, the first game, Monty, that was a great game. That was going well. I thought we had a chance, Monty. I thought it was going to happen. What did you think of game one?
So here's the thing about this series. I was actually, I think that this started out sort of the way I expected it. So I expected, because we were in this top lane smite meta, for Impact to come in and use top lane smite. He's got a good control of the map. This is how Impact's going to head. This is going to get ahead. This is how we're going to see Team Impulse win this series. I was a bit surprised to see Rush on Nunu. I'll be honest, but I like their composition. They've got good engage. They have that Shyvana Orianna combo coming in. It was a pretty decisive win. I think it was stretched out a little bit longer than it needed to be over the course of this game, but we saw that big CS advantage open up over Dyrus for Impact, but they weren't the best at closing it out. But Xiao Zhao was a farm monster as usual, and you get the win for Impulse in this game. Now, I didn't really I think Rush plays Nunu like he does his other supports, where he just flash snowballs people and tries to auto them with Blood Boil, which is a completely horrible way to play Nunu.
He seems to think that seems to think that when he's playing Nunu, he's insect on Lee Sin, and he's trying to insect kick people in the back. That champion doesn't work that way, my friend. And every game Nunu, why Nunu? Why?
Maybe he thought that because Nunu is a Yeti, and at least Nunu sort of looks intimidating, it looks like he should actually do damage. He's a giant hulking creature, smacking you with his bear paws, that maybe it did damage. But you know what, Rush, it actually doesn't do damage at all. It's just terrible when you flash like that. And so I was a bit disheartened, because I thought to myself, well, on one hand, man, it's really great to see Impact on this Smite top laner, but on the other hand, Rush is he's playing a different champion, but he's not playing to his strength. So I totally didn't expect Impulse to come in here and for Rush to play Nunu 3 out of the 4 games. I thought, let's play Vi, let's play Lee Sin, and he did play Lee Sin, but they got bodied early, which sometimes happens when you play as risky as you do with Impulse. But I didn't think that their game plan was going to be, let's just play Nunu.
I've got a question for you about the way Rush's jungling worked in this series, okay, which is, I can't tell. Listen, I'm not an expert, so I don't know this. This is why I want to ask your opinion on it. I can't tell how much of it is that the Nunu pick wasn't working for this style of play and that they were over-aggressive on the side of Tip, or how much was really good adaptation knowing from TSM that this would happen. Because think about how so many of the latter games in the series worked. It would be that Tip would try these aggressive moves. They'd try to invade jungle, they'd try to do these skirmishes, but it seems like every time TSM got either just a little bit of the better of it, or sometimes just turned it completely and just outright won a fight and got kills, and they got the benefit out of the aggression from the other team. Which side do you think it was? Was it over aggression from the Tip guys? Was TSM? Do you think they were aware of this and they had a plan for it? What do you think?
I do think they were aware of it and had a plan for it, and I think that Santorin played around Rush very well over the course of the series. I think he was there to counteract Rush's moves, but I don't think that by that same token, Rush was also playing, like I said, playing Nunu like he would a more aggressive jungler, and he was trying to do these crazy all-ins by using summoner spells that simply don't work. So it's a little of column A and a little of column B. I think certainly Santorin was in the right place at the right time, but that at the same time, Rush didn't have a very good idea of the limits or the capabilities of Nunu as a champion.
I'm confused as to why he wouldn't just pick a straight-up warrior-type jungler and go head-to-head and try and find him, kill him, make plays that way.
I mean, if you went back in time and told me that, if you told me to make that prediction and you told me that Rush is going to play Nunu 3 times, I wouldn't have made the same bet, because that's not what got Impulse to the point that they were in the LCS. That's not what their strengths are.
So Kelsey, we're talking here about junglers playing Nunu. Now, this is where you're an expert. This is where we got you in here. We're drafting you in here. What do you think about Nunu as a jungle pick now? Obviously, historically, it's always been a Chinese pick, right?
And it's always been a ClearLove pick. typically.
Oh boy. Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
lay it on me here. Lay it on me.
Just it's good for if you have a really, really strong AD carry.
Oh boy. Yep. There we go.
Yeah,
Keep it going. Keep it going.
If your style is to play for, especially in the current meta, if your style is to play for these dragons and like build up and scale for these dragons, then Nunu is a good pick. But I don't think that that's historically been the way Impulse likes to play. The other issue is that, like, if they don't win an early game, they're not going to have this stellar late game. The other issue is that I think that they played the lane swap like really poorly, and so in the game where, even when in the game where they played Lee Sin, like he was tied up trying to defend Impact in the lane swap because Team Solo Mid just took advantage of Impact being stranded in the lane swap and repeatedly like dove him. And then Pete the caster was like, "Oh my gosh, Dyrus has so much more CS than Impact. This is amazing." It was all down to how the lane swap was played. So
yeah, I agree. Those casters are shit. But anyway, Monty, what were you gonna say?
I think that part of it too was, especially in Game 4, it was another Juggernaut composition with a Lulu mid and a Shyvana top. And if you're going to take Shyvana top and you're going to take Smite on Shyvana top, you need to be able to scale with that champion. So you have all of these picks across the board that require a great deal of scaling for them to do any damage at all. And you don't have great wave clear early on. All you have is this Lulu. And they were also trying to fight in the jungle with Lulu. And the Santorin playing this Gragas, that just simply does more damage in the early game than the Nunu. So it's a matter of, it's quite easy to win skirmishes, especially since you have more CC with that body slam up more frequently, and everything about it is better. I don't in terms of skirmishing.
This is
so
where
I didn't really get Impulse's game plan coming through. That said, I do think that TSM did a very good job of adapting to it. I do think that the reads from Santorin were good as well. And in fact, I think TSM played very well overall. The one thing I would say about that series that I did find a little concerning about TSM was that Dyrus's teleport usage got him killed a whole bunch of times and was generally suboptimal. He would teleport and then to a position where he got dove, or he would teleport too late, or he would teleport in the wrong location. Like, Dyrus's TP usage was quite poor. But other than that, I think they looked very good.
So, speaking of Santorin, so this was a key point. That was a key area when we had the discussion on the prediction part of it, about where there could be an advantage for Tip. Because we thought Santorin is overrated. Now, the obvious blowback of that, Monty, is going to be like, we always told you Santorin was good, he's the best in his region, he should be the rookie of the all that good stuff.
Okay, and by the way, when I said that he shouldn't be the rookie of the season, that was for regular season only, so playoff performances don't count. If you ask me now, I would agree that he deserves it more, but that wasn't what the award was for. And when I look at Santorin's performance and Santorin's teammates as opposed to Rush's, and how Rush was a core part of his team style. And in fact, Rush's performance defined his own team style as they sort of found themselves later in the season, and he carried so many games. I still think Rush had the better regular season despite having a rockier time early.
But was this anything different from Santorin?
Yes, I think he played more intelligently, and he played very well around Rush. I do think that we saw more from Santorin in this series.
I also think the Gragas pick was very good, because if Impact wants to go all in, like, the Gragas is going to counter that very effectively. So
yeah, I agree. I think the Gragas pick really worked out for him. Now, I would like to see some games where he doesn't play Gragas 3 times to see before we start going nuts about Santorin. And I think that Cloud9, considering that we know they will play Gragas as well if given the opportunity, he's going to have to show more champion picks in the series against Cloud9. That's just a fact. And he wasn't too impactful on his Nidalee in Game 1.
Because the problem with that whole stream of rhetoric that people always give, which is that fans of a team, when you say that one of their players isn't that good, if he then has a good game, they say, I always told you he was that good. They would break under questioning instantly, Monty. Because I'd go, oh, okay, well, why did you say he was that good? Well, no, I always knew that he would be that good. Yeah, but he didn't do it yet, though. No, but I knew that. Oh, so you're psychic. I mean, do you have some secret information? Do you know his roommate? Is his roommate seen him practicing? I mean, where is this information coming from? From the ether? How are you knowing that? Well, because I really like TSM. Oh, okay, well, that's all we needed to know then. Like, I mean, where's this information coming from? Here's the problem with the whole thing of like, we hate TSM, that's why we predicted it. Dude, did you see how many analysts predicted Tip would win that series? Tons of people did. Quite publicly as well. It's not like they hid it and were like, oh, well, because the thing is, yeah, it always had a chance to go both ways. It's not like people hit it and were like, ooh, I'll see which one this way goes and I won't put myself out there. I saw quite a lot of people say that Tip was going to win this series, actually.
Yeah, including people on the analyst desk for Riot were predicting the same thing. I think that on paper, this did in fact look like a quite not good matchup for TSM. And my prediction was slightly in favor of Impulse because we know that TSM is good at adapting in the best of 5, and they were a very strong team and the strongest team going through the NA LCS regular season. But part of that prediction was I think Impulse has a slight edge, but if TSM wins, I just think they're going to win the whole tournament. I think Impulse stylistically has the best counter to TSM.
I also noticed in this series that like Lustboy has such a weird style of support where he actually seems to be at his best in those skirmishes in the jungles, etc. Like that's where he'll always do like the clutch ability on a teammate, or especially when he was playing Thresh in this series. It's not that he's the guy in lane who does the mad life flash hook and catches someone and creates a whole kill, but in the jungle he's the guy where when the guy's been jumped on and people have got onto one enemy, okay, the enemy could then get away, but that's when he'll always land the follow-up hook that just ensures the kill comes.
Right, and honestly, if we're talking about the MVP of this season, if TSM wins this season, I think Lustboy deserves the MVP because he's just been very consistent in his play throughout. He's been very dominant in terms of the way he plays Vision. He's been a playmaker. He's been great at peeling. Everything about he's gotten Wild Turtle through the laning phase, which is a Herculean feat in and of itself.
Exactly, yeah.
So I think Lustboy, if anybody, deserves MVP.
Here's what we're going to do.
LCS.
We're now going to bring Wild Turtle. We're now going to bring Lustboy, initiate him into the Hall of Fame of carry supports. Okay, so we had Xpecial carrying Cop all the way through these things. We had Yellow Star doing perhaps the best job ever with Steel back. And now we're going to bring you in. Welcome to the class of 2015, Lustboy, for your work with Wild Turtle. You've gone above and beyond the Call of Duty. You are a man to be admired and praised. Like, for your work with, I won't go with that joke, but for your work with the disadvantaged, we'll just say that, shall we? I'm trying to stay hired here by myself. Why? I don't know. I can't even be fire myself anymore. Okay, I'm trying to keep Monty hired. That's what I'm really trying to do. That. Okay. So going forwards from this series, you've both made it sound like TSM's a lock to win the league now.
I would be very surprised if they didn't.
I agree. I think that Team Solo Mid they have advantages in certain areas that work out, and
like Bjergsen.
Yeah. I wasn't going to name names, but overall,
but if C9 wins to go for the MVP, I say Sneaky gets it on the other side of things, right? And Sneaky has been really consistent over the course of the playoffs. I just think that everything we see about TSM is just slightly better than I don't see really an edge in any particular way, except for maybe that teleport usage. But I think it was unusually bad for Dyrus in this series. He's never great, but he's not usually that bad either. So. Then
going back to the lane swap, historically, I gave C9 edges because they were good at executing strategies like a lane swap and at least better than TSM. And their team fighting was a little bit better, whereas now I think TSM's team fighting has really leveled up. So, in terms of where they historically have had disadvantages, TSM has really shored up a lot of those.
See, I really thought after the Liquid series that I was at... First of all, I thought Tip was going to win anyway, but I thought that I was going to be able to predict C9 to beat TSM, because the main thing to me, one of the hardest things to do when you're doing analysis and predictions, Monty, that I've found, is when a team is really clutch under pressure, because unfortunately, it's so hard to know whether to bet in favour of that, like, oh, they always come through, they always find a way, or whether you look when they're not playing that well and you have to just say, well, maybe they don't this time. Maybe this time they actually don't have enough advantages where even if they do that, that's not enough, and you can't always rely. That's like for anyone who doesn't know, there is no person in history of sport who always came through in the clutch. Even the most clutch guys ever still have sometimes where they just lose. Like Michael Jordan didn't hit every buzzer beater, by the way, guys. We all remember the memorable ones he hits. That's the whole point. We don't remember the ones where he just missed, and everyone was like, "Oh, that's a shame," and then everyone had to just go home and be like, "Oh, it's a shame he didn't hit that one." No one tells that story because it fucking sucks, doesn't it? So here's the problem. I thought that I could go off on that. I thought that was going to be my cognitive dissonance, Kelsey. I was going to say, yeah, but they can be clutch and they can find a way to win, and they can find a way to battle back into the series and have heart and the momentum and throwing all the buzzwords that casters use. But the big problem I've realized, that reason why I don't think that'll happen, is because when I look at it, that premise is actually probably the only way they can win. Is that they're going to be on the back foot all the time. They're going to have all these problems. They're going to have to do these amazing comebacks. They're going to have to battle their way back in, because starting at the beginning of the game, their pick ban phase is really scary compared to TSM's in general for the whole season has been pretty good. So if I'm going to give TSM the edge there, and then they have Bjergsen over high, yeah, I'm going to have to go with TSM on this. But I'm still going to say it's close. I don't think it's as convincing as you guys do. I think it's going to be like 3-2. I really do think it's going to be super close. I do think Cloud9's going to win me some clutch games, but I'm going to have to side with TSM. I've finally done it. Now, I'm also secretly hoping that I've now jinxed him forever now. Like, he's finally on our side, guys. It's like, I'm willing to give up. I'm like, okay, I'm going back to Game of Thrones Monty again. You know that scene where Eddard Stark actually confesses his treason, when he actually he wasn't actually treasonous, but he does it because there's this epic speech that I've referenced before, okay, where he talks to Varys in the dungeon, and he's explaining that, like, why would I let myself, why would I give up my honor just for the sake of living a bit longer? It's not a big deal. But Varys makes this point to him, okay, that if you do so, then, the people that you love might actually live as a result of it. So what he comes to the conclusion of, here's some meta-contextual analysis of Game of Thrones for you guys here. What that scene represents, where he confesses his treason, is that what he's realized is that honor is a great ideal to live to, okay? To have these principles that guide your life, but actually to give up your honor in order to save someone else's life, in doing so, to then look like a weak person and you betrayed him and all that stuff, is actually a higher ideal to aspire to, that you're willing to give up your own pride and your own natural honor in order to do something good in the world. So what I'm going to do now, Monty, is I'm going to sacrifice my own dignity as a certified TSM hater, and I'm going to power all of that spirit bomb of Voodoo power that I've created, all that negativity that I've built up now. I'm now going to turn over to the TSM side, and I'm going to inject it into their side, right? And it'll be like when Neo jumped into Agent Smith. Initially, you're like, oh, okay, I guess Agent Smith killed him or something. But then I'm eventually just going to burst out from him and destroy them internally. And that's why, if TSM lose, I actually feel like I played a part in it. I'm going to curse the whole well. I'm coming over to your side, guys. I'm not going to chant TSM. I'm not going to go that far. I'm sorry, actually, I do still have my Eddard Stark type pride. I won't chant TSM. But I put a curse on thee that I say TSM will win the final. Now let's hope that it works out. Let's hope I'm disappointed once more, Monty.
but see, this is my question to you, because you have the belief. Let me expand upon this. So if TSM does go to MSI, what happens?
Yeah, what happens? Oh, sorry, you didn't say what do you want to happen. So what happens is they go along there, and Bjergsen is against Power of Evil, and Power of Evil just straight shits on him solo in the lanes, and they get knocked out by the best team in Europe, and GE Tigers stomps all over you, and then in the last game they bring in Pawn, and then he's like, oh, I'm back carrying ClearLove too hard, and then GE Tigers shit all over his face completely, using his Z pick. Oh yeah, that's right, it's not what I wanted to happen. Okay, what will actually happen? Okay, I'm back. I've reeled it back in. Okay. Let me think. Oh, we lost Monty, but I'm not editing, so fuck that. It's still going on. So let me think. Well, I'm assuming it's. Here's the crazy thing. I'm still assuming EDG's going to MSI. So even with you, I still think they're still going to win. So I'm going to have EDG there. I'm going to have GE Tigers there. That's right, Monty. GE Tigers. They're going to be there. So the GE Tigers is going to be there. TSM's going to be there. Hopefully the Jinx takes place. But okay, they might be there. FNATIC's going to be there. Yeah, that's right. I said it, fans. And who else? Who gives a fuck? There's another 5th and 6th team going to be there. I don't give a fuck. No AHQ are not monsters. Westall had one player front. I'm getting off tangent already. But there's 4 teams there. There's 4 teams there, ladies and gentlemen. So of these 4 teams, FNATIC, TSM, EDG, and GE, as it stands right now, I think that TSM would beat FNATIC. I've got no problem with that one. I think that EDG is the hard one because it's if they have you or not. I think even with you, it'd still be close. I think between EDG and TSM, I think GE Tigers would smash TSM. I don't care if everyone's like, but oh my god, the IEM. Like, I don't care, mate. Come at me, motherfuckers. This is best of 5. And it's a huge tournament where you have to play everyone. Come at me. GE Tigers will crush TSM.
I've actually seen a comment where someone actually now thinks that TSM beat GE Tigers at
Good. Let's set it up. Set it up, motherfuckers. Let's do this.
The point I'm asking is if you want TSM to go to IEM, then you're saying they're not going to win anyway. So
you think I want TSM to go to IEM? I think you've misjudged me, my friend. Here, I don't want TSM to go to MSI. I don't know what you're meaning. I do want them to go to Tallahassee. But that's just, I want them to relocate there and play in some sort of amateur Tallahassee league land circuit there and become like a collegiate team there and have all japes with a reality TV show. Now then, be getting beyond what I want again. You see, you've gone into what I want there, Monty. So what was the point there about TSM going to MSI? What was the point?
Well, if they go there and they struggle against international teams, isn't that, like, what happens if they go there and get bodied by FNATIC?
It's the way he's asking me, like, that's a problem to me. Like, but how would you sleep at night, Thorin, knowing that TSM got bodied by FNATIC at MSI? Well, I'd imagine with a huge grin on my face.
No. What I'm saying is, if they lose before that happens, then there's not a chance for anybody else to beat them.
Now I know what you're saying. You're right. I need TSM to win to go to the international competition and get bought. You're right. I've gotten out of my own headspace here. I always needed them to go to Worlds. I always needed them to go to international competition to see what would happen. I need things like Samsung White versus TSM Best of 5 in my life. In those moments, I realized that it has been worth it. It's worth letting the bad guys win a few times so that it builds up the final fight where the good guys win to be even better, you know.
There you go.
See, what's funny is for TSM fans, they can just spin that as when Samsung White won the first few games was the bad guys winning, but then TSM won game 3, so it even works for you guys. See, I bring people together. I'm just a weaver of synergy. That's actually my other nickname, the weaver of synergy. And, I just bring people together in hatred against me and standing in opposition to me, but that's still uniting people. Like, I've united more people. I'm making my own million-man march, but it's the TSM fans against me to have me. Did you ever see, Monty, where they made like a petition on like the WhiteHouse.com to have me fired from OnGamers, as though Barack Obama himself would actually be like, who is this Thorin guy? And I'm going to have him fired from OnGamers. Like, I don't think that was ever going to go through, guys, but it was a nice attempt anyway, much like TSM at international competitions. Back on topic, what do you think would happen, Monty, if TSM went to MSI?
I think they'd split with FNATIC. I don't think they'd do very well against EDG or GE or SKT, depending on who's going to be going.
Kelsey, what do you think TSM would do at MSI?
I think that, I think they'd beat FNATIC, but I think it would be close. I think that FNATIC has looked better. I think the patch has done good things for them because they're able to run tank junglers and top lane carries more often. But I still think that TSM will get the better of them. And I think that probably it'll be pretty close against EDG if they play you. It's still really unclear if they'll have Pawn by then, but I think that EDG could still be able to beat them just because I think that in theory, EDG plays that tip, fast pressure, early style, right? But
and they can know how to use a Nunu. So anyway,
what
what we have to do here is you have to fall back on what I'm going to call the Monty defense, which is that after GE Tigers got bodied at IEM, what Monty did was he said, well, if they were to play at MSI, that would mean that they'd have won the Korean regional. Therefore, they'd have like sort of shown that they weren't going to collapse again. Therefore, they'd be at their prime. Therefore, it would all work out again. So just use the same logic for EDG. If somehow with you they do manage to win China, then they'll have shown that they have strength. They'll have overcome those issues. Then they'll go to MSI. Then they'll be strong. Then there's no problem. There's no problem. Okay.
I think
it's all there. It's all rationally in place. You know.
Drexen made a joke on Twitter about, EDG looks extremely dominant. Riot is currently preparing Death's Poison as we speak. But little did he know, it was Pawn all along. It's just really weird that like EDG has now, I actually don't like it at all. People would say, you have this thing to fall back on. If EDG performs poorly, well, one of their players got sick, but really it just bothers me because I have no way of actually being able to gauge them.
Well, that's literally been the story for every single event now, Kelsey. Like, WE, the last one was the one where they changed all the players. Who else was there? EDG had Name was sick at Worlds. Then OMG wasn't even using their fucking support player.
It's gotten to the point where it's like...
Yeah, the whole thing was terrible.
You can't even say sandbagging anymore because maybe sandbagging is just the entire Chinese metagame. Like, that's it.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's the old rope-a-dope. That's what they just do all season long.
We're just gonna take Dota 7 to Worlds again, make him play mid. Let's go.
So the other series, let me think. No, it's all with NA actually. Okay, here's a question, Monty. If one player on C9 played at an above average level, as in his relative average and what his season was like so far, which one would it be that could tip the series to C9? Is the one guy who just a standout performance would win them the series?
I think you have to go with Hai. I think if Hai does well individually, that the shot calling from C9 is better in terms of objective based gameplay.
When you say does better, do you mean like is able to lock in an AP champion and press Q, W, E, or R? Is that what you meant, or did you mean something more succinct and more in depth than that?
I think that he has to pretty much. I think he has to have a couple new picks in terms of his champion pool, and I think if he can have a couple new picks that he can go even in lane with Bjergsen with, maybe that'll be enough.
The problem is, what can he play? Because the big problem always when he goes against Bjergsen is, well, there goes Zed. Like, I needed that, mate. That's kind of been what's keeping me. Zed was his life support. Oh boy, I love me some Corki, Monty. You know what I love about Corki? Being told for 15 minutes that this amazing power spike's coming up, then having people lose team fights and lose the game and go late game, and then when it goes late game, have the casters still tell me there's a chance the team with the Corki that's done nothing is now going to win as he procs his fucking Trinity Force.
I don't like how Hai doesn't build Luden's Echo on Corki even when his team is full AD. That's what I don't like, honestly.
Because I told you, he's given... Listen, he knows what doesn't work for him, Monty. He's given up on AP whatsoever. He's quit that habit hard. He's now a pure AD man. He's playing mid lane, but that's not a problem. It's working out for him, okay. Actually, that was the thing, though, in that series. That's what's bizarre. In the series of TIP versus TSM, it felt like Bjergsen didn't really have to carry much. When I think back, I can't really think of him, like, super bodying any situations, really.
I mean, I think his performance is still solid. He did get out-farmed at times by Xiao, but you kind of expect that. But he skirmished really well, and I think he worked well with Santorin and Lustboy to set up a lot of those skirmishes too. So,
what did you think of Xiao? Because it was a confusing series to me. Like the TF game, I don't really know what was happening because there was some good plays in it. He did some good moves, but I don't know what it was.
I don't have an answer for Xiao.
He used to play a little bit like that on LMQ and LPO, where he would just have like solid farm games and then little to no like game impact at all. So I don't know.
Like you would think that would be awesome if you've got Rush, this aggressive jungler, wants to invade, make plays. Awesome. Let's have the TF come in. We'll get some ganks going. That only works if you do the last part. You actually have to do a gank. You know that ultimate, like. You can use that to go places on the map. You don't have to stay mid lane and farm. If you're going to farm, I probably wouldn't pick TF personally. That wouldn't be my like super farm champion I'd pick.
I agree with you. I think that Xiao can be a good TF player, but what's confusing about Xiao's performances are how much he actually wants to make plays on the map versus sometimes he just doesn't. And there's no real rhyme or reason from my observations as to when he does and when he does not.
Yeah.
I know I've asked you this. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say that a big issue is that maybe Bjergsen didn't really have to hard carry because all of Tip's carries, in theory, like their top laner and their jungler, were tied up in some way. So
see, I really naively thought for a second there that you'd just gone totally to the dark side and you were going to be like, maybe Bjergsen didn't have to carry because everyone on TSM can carry. And I was going to be like, get off this show right now and just hang up with the call immediately.
There was like a situation where TSM needed
not in this house, young lady.
crazy, outstanding performer to pull through just because they tied up all of, TIP's outstanding performers.
Okay, let me ask you this then, Monty. What about Sneaky versus Wild Turtle? Isn't that an area where there can be a chance for Cloud9?
Sure, I think in that consistent performance, but then again, I don't think they're going to get some sort of crazy advantage in the 2v2. Sneaky is not a particularly aggressive or risk player. Sneaky plays a very low risk style of play. So I don't really see him capitalizing it on that much. And Wild Turtle's team fighting is decent right now. So I don't think it's going to be something that's really going to tip the scales here.
What do you think, Kelsey, of Sneaky vis-a-vis le AD carries from China? Le AD carry Xinhua.
First of all, I would like to preface that I feel like this is probably the worst ever LPL split in terms of AD carry talent that's actually Chinese. And we have, I think the best AD carries in LPL are easily Imp and Deft. Zzitai has had games where he gets like really ridiculous landing phases and can't carry his team, or sometimes he'll do really well, but it's usually on Lucian. So he's a little bit restricted. And then from there, you mostly just have like solid AD carries or AD carries that have inconsistent positioning of some regard. So there's just like this huge drop off after Deft in particular, and then you have Imp who can do like really well. And yeah, so it's not a hugely diverse talent pool of AD carries in LPL right now. So I mean, like you could probably put Sneaky in at least around mid tier. So yeah, at least.
High praise. He would
he'd probably be better than he'd be better. It's so hard because if Sneaky were given like the resources that Snake has, I think he could do pretty well. Maybe not, because he wouldn't be like the super aggressive player, and in that way, it's the way that Snake makes Crystal work. So I don't know, like. Because Kid had really good games, but I don't think overall Kid has been the performer Sneaky has. But at the same time, yeah. So maybe I'd put him like around Kid, who I think is like probably the fourth.
What do you think about Korean AD carries, Monty? Where do they stack up? What do you think of AD carry talent currently? Because you seem wishy-washy on AD carries all the time, aren't you? Like you were riding that fucking Captain Jack revival train so goddamn hard just because they beat fucking Blaze, and then you hopped right off that like, oh, he's not even the best one on Jin Air. Pilot's fucking amazing. Oh, he's so good, that guy. Oh my god. Okay, yeah.
I think Pilot is really good, but
I know. So tell me where Sneaky would fit in.
Pilot's sort of like Sneaky. I think Sneaky would do really well in Korea. I think the only carry that we really see that's super strong consistently is Prey. I think Pilot and Bang play similar styles to what we see Sneaky play, although I think Bang is exhibiting more carry potential as of late. I think they did very well. He did, in particular, did very well, having the burden placed on him in the last match against GE. But beyond that, I think Sneaky could be like probably 3 or 4.
Let's move over into Europe. Oh boy. Now, believe it or not, this will sound like quite a statement here, Monty. But when I watched we'll start with SK Unicorns of Love here, by the way. Let's get that out of the way to begin with. I think this series was actually more painful to me and more searing to my psyche than the TSM Tip series. Because when I watched this series here, it's like, at least in the Tip series, yeah, they won game 1, but then they essentially got figured out in every other game, never adapted, did the same things, and so lost in a way that actually made sense. The way SK lost this series, I still to this day don't know how it happened or what they would have done differently. Like, what do you think about this series here? Unicorns Love winning 3-2.
I don't really know. I mean, I find this so frustrating because they SK really should have won the last game, and they didn't push their split push advantage as hard as they could have. But also that Baron, if they had gotten that Baron, they 100% win that game if they just go back to split pushing. But they have 2 smites and don't do it. So you have these moments of just like total choking. And
you know how hubris works, Monty? You know how hubris works? Like, sometimes when you think you have confidence and you think you know something, maybe you'll make like a statement that goes too far. I mean, we've never done anything like that on this show, by the way. But we had a young man called Forgiven on, and do you remember his infamous statement about Febiven? About how the problem is he doesn't like players who have an advantage, but then don't transfer that individual advantage into a team advantage, push the advantage and win the game. Now, in this series, there was times where Forgiven would get kills, be up in lane, and would just sit farming for the rest of the game and essentially not use the advantage. What do you think of this?
I think that Forgiven, the SK was pretty good about pushing advantages in terms of... Here's the thing. I think when they set up for a 1-3-1 with Freddy and with Fox, it was Freddy and Fox that weren't pushing the advantage, and Forgiven was just holding the mid as part of the 3-man core. So I'm not sure if it was actually Forgiven making the mistakes in those games. Obviously, I'd have to go back and take a look at them again, but it's not the feeling I got, personally.
I mean, I meant as a general concept, though, in terms of their team here. Like, surely SK is the team that's supposed to close the game out.
I certainly think, especially in that game 5, they didn't push that advantage, and they also made a very crucial error and lost a Baron that they should not have lost.
What do you think, Kelsey?
I think that overall, yeah, it's there's so much pressure on Forgiven on SK in terms of, like, you can have the top lane and mid lane performances, but they usually perform better when they're supplementing Forgiven's performances. So I had faith that he'd be able to adapt to some of these other picks like Corki, because he's had some okay games on Corki and some okay games on Tristana and still like conduct their same style and do it effectively and take those towers early. But they just kind of didn't. And a lot of people will give credit to Unicorns for maybe surprising them with like these weird picks like the Jungle Gnar and everything else, but I don't think...
The Jungle Gnar is terrible. It's not even remotely good.
Monty, you're missing the genius. All of the good Kikis wins is where he picks something that isn't a good jungle champion, and it just like... And then he wins on it. That's how he does it.
I don't think that's a huge factor, because I don't think it changes the way Unicorns of Love fundamentally plays. So if it does have an impact at all, it's going to be just that like SK is just completely mystified by, oh no, we've never seen this before. How are we supposed to play against it? But
the Jungle Gnar does fucking nothing. Okay, look, Jungle TF, there are reasons to do that. Like you cheese gank level 2 and then pour it all around the map. Like there actually is strategic value to that. There is nothing that Gnar does that Nunu or Sejuani wouldn't do better depending on the composition. It is absolute shit.
But that's the style. Dude, this is the guy who picked Shaco. This is the guy who picked fucking Udyr.
Shaco is shit. Udyr's okay.
Yeah, but he's getting wins on these champions. You can't deny it, Monty. How's he doing this?
But it makes me...
Why does he keep getting away with this? He can't keep getting away with this. Is he your version of that, Monty? Is he your version of that video? He can't keep getting away with this. Yes, that's Monty after a Kikis win.
That's the thing, though, where I feel like if it has any impact at all, it's just that they're thrown off and it's like this mental thing, because I don't think it changes the Unicorns of Love fundamental play style. So, I mean, even if, whether it's an inferior or better pick, it's not something like, oh, we have to change the way we're going to play against this team because they have this weird pick. It's more just like, oh, they have this weird pick. Oh, no, I'm just going to, like, passively not do anything against it.
Well, I think another storyline that we're not talking about here is that Forgiven had 2 champions banned away from him this entire series. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that SK is good at playing Corki. I think they freaking suck when they can't win lane. They are too dependent on winning lane in order to know what to do in the game, and they aren't good at playing around Corki's power spikes at all.
You do realize, Monty, that essentially what happened was Forgiven tried to use reverse psychology, because at IEM, when everyone banned out his 2 champions, it was obvious that was going to happen. So he was like, I dare you. I dare everyone we play I dare you to ban those 2 champions. See what happens. And they were like, well, no, we're definitely going to do that. He's like, shit. I'll play Corki then, I guess.
Same bans that happened at IEM, and I think that picking the Annie and the Caitlyn in the last game by Unicorns of Love was smart, because it put them onto the Corki, and they don't know how to play with Corki. It's true, but come on, SK, you have Graves, Lucian, and Lulu banned against you 4 games in a row, and there's no one on your team that can pick up the slack with some of these power picks and actually
Didn't I make this point
game?
On that very show, Monty, when he was arguing about Fox being this monster mid laner? I said, if someone's targeting 2 bans at another player on your team, then another carry is going to have an open game and wreck everyone. Where was that? It didn't happen.
It's just that, like, this is what I'm talking about.
Spencer stepped up. Spencer has stepped up and absolutely brought them back into that game 4. He was great, but the rest of the time, Freddie and Fox were not very impactful in this series on the whole.
Again, and I think that they do well if there's already an advantage in the other lane, because it pulls some of the pressure. Unicorns of Love, I think their strengths are their support and probably the fact that their solo laners can have high pressure games. So the fact, if your solo lane matchups are not easy, I mean, I don't think that Power of Evil and Vivichachi are necessarily super, super high, but I don't think they match up terribly with Freddy and Fox at all. Then that's the fact that they can't still react well against their lanes if there's more jungle pressure maybe towards bottom, or if bottom has more bans against them, then that's troubling. But I do think that there is some credit for the strengths of Unicorns of Love solo lanes. And again, the fact that Hillsong was able to abuse with roams and some teamfight initiations, because we talk about Unicorns of Love, and the one thing that they're solid at, regardless of what other weird stuff, is knowing how to chain CC. So
yeah, and let's talk about Hillsang. What a great player. He's been so clutch throughout these playoffs. We know his Annie is good. We know his Thresh is good. We know his Morgana is good. He's so good at hitting these skill shots. In fact, he's the reason why Unicorns of Love have won all of these games, because he's so good at setting up their fight. They're so reliant on him. Why don't you just ban those 3 champions out and see what the hell happens? Because I think that Unicorns of Love can't set up a team fight if he's not on those champions. And you know what? That's what I think FNATIC's going to do. I think that they're going to very aggressively go after that. Yellowstar will actually counterpick champions, because unlike N-rated, Yellowstar actually plays 2 of those champions, which are Thresh and Morgana. And we're going to see a very different series.
I think we're all aware at this point in time, Monty.
Look, I looked at that first series that they played against Gamma. I was like, Hillsang is the reason they're winning these games. Just take away his champions that he sets up these. He's a good playmaker on them. Hillsang's a good player, no doubt.
If there's one thing everyone on this show, especially on this panel that we've got combined today, is inherently aware of, Monty, it's that Yellowstar definitely plays Morgana. We've established that. That never needs to be debated again. There's a rule written on the wall that he definitely plays Morgana, and never to forget it. So we're actually in the room that Kelsey's in right now. So it's above the camera. That's one of her tips. So let me think. What's interesting is I purposely asked the critical question about Forgiven to start this segment, because I hoped I would draw some criticism of Forgiven out of you, you would have some. But actually, in general, people have been fairly over. They haven't had much criticism from him, because I wanted to then make this point now, which is because of the fact that obviously Forgiven's public style has been to say well, we're going to win and I'm going to carry and I'm going to be the best player. All these things that actually I like it when a player says that. I like it when they're cocky like that, Unfortunately, when you then lose, and then you lose to a team like Unicorns of Love, who aren't supposed to be good, and especially their AD carry is not supposed to be on your level whatsoever, the natural reaction, unfortunately, of fans is going to be, well, you lost to them, they must be better than you, you weren't that good, you must have played badly if you lost. Whereas here's what I got, I referenced this earlier, Monty. It's actually possible to be the better player, to still be the best player at your position, and to lose, and not to have lost because it was your fault and you played badly. Actually, I can't see any logical reason as to why Forgiven is not the best AD carry in the West still. Nothing changed about that after this series.
I think he was good in this series.
Yeah, I think he was fine. I think he still, obviously, we already established that Hillsong carried that opposite lane, so the fact that he couldn't get advantages wasn't necessarily... He still did get farm advantages, right? Like, and he still had pretty good positioning in team fights, despite the fact that Unicorns of Love was able to chain CC well and lock down like other carries. He still had pretty good performances. Like him and Svenskeren did well, especially Svenskeren like performed above and beyond what I think he's played even the rest of the split. So I mean there were standout players on SK for sure.
Think about how the rest of the split and the rest of SK with Forgiven in it has gone. When he was at his most dominant, when every game he would dominate, was when people never banned away both of those champions. They banned one, or they picked one and he just took the other, okay. So if he couldn't get the Graves, which is obviously the key priority, he would just go for the Lucian, and he would always do well. That fit his style of like, wait for the right moment, then go in using the dash forward ability, and then get the kills, then get out, okay. And everyone peel for him. That style worked awesome in that sense, but as soon as people totally targeted him out, it's not that he then threw the game and was total shit. He would either have okay or he would have occasional good performances, but now the carry role fell on someone else, and that didn't happen. Like, Freddie he thought that he played bad, he just couldn't carry on some of these champions, or he doesn't really play a carry style. I've never understood why people always put it on him that he's a carrier.
He didn't have a good series. I mean, he got caught out a bunch of times, and he was caught multiple times walking in very unsafe locations to his lane, through the jungle. I don't think he played particularly well over the course of the series. But
this series, to me, the big focal point to me was looking at Fox, because he's going against Power of Evil, who we know is a good player and has been doing well in all the playoffs, and now all these bans are open when Theory Fox can pick almost anything in the game. This should be where, right, it's your turn now. We need you to do well against this guy. We need you to do well in these fights. Yeah, he didn't really have much carry potential overall, I didn't think.
I think that they messed up their wave management, their side wave management, especially in Game 5, and couldn't push a 1-3-1 as a result. I think they could have gotten more towers before they even started that Baron in the first place.
So, that reminds me. I'll now reference... The problem is I already did last week the whole joke Jack Dilemma call up on the phone type thing. So I won't just repeat that. Instead, I'll just state the premise of the fans have created their own Jack Dilemma Monty. Because here's how their logic goes, okay. Oh, well, Unicorns of Love beat SK. Therefore, the players on SK mustn't actually be that good. And Unicorns players must be better. So then now we stop the call there, okay. Like that's the initial premise. Premise number one. Here's the Jack Dilemma that the fans have created. Now we pull in what the fans themselves think. Okay. But wait a minute. Don't you guys think that Koreans aren't actually better, but Koreans always beat Westerners? Yeah. They just win with strategy and using like better picks and stuff. Oh, okay then. Okay, cool. Those two resolve each other. Those two. That doesn't work, I'm afraid. Which one is it? One or the other? What do you actually think of Unicorns of Love's level of role? Has this shown you something more about them as a team? How are they winning?
I really liked how they played in Game 1 of this series. I think they did an extremely good job. I liked their team composition. I thought they played it out really, really nicely. I was very impressed. That was something that I felt like I hadn't seen that much from the Unicorns of Love. But I do think that they do get pretty sloppy, actually, at times. They overcommit to fighting. They remind me much more of a Chinese team in terms of this emphasis on constantly fighting, constantly scrapping, than we see from a lot of other teams. And that can take you off guard because this constant fighting style can throw teams off. Can throw teams off their game, that's for sure. But, I mean...
Kelsey, what do you feel about the fact that every single team that just mindlessly fights is apparently a Chinese team, and that's like, we're never going to let that narrative die. That will exist forever.
Yeah, I know.
So what do you think about Unicorns of Love, Chinese team light?
Kelsey, I was traumatized by watching Snake versus King tonight, okay? That's what's fresh in my mind. I apologize. I know VG exists. I know that they have two of the best Korean shot callers to ever play League of Legends on them, so that they're slightly less in that style. I get it.
That's the thing. Like, I have no comeback, because if King and Snake hadn't happened last night, then I could say, oh, they're not Chinese. But that was just like watching them, like I said, regress. Again, if you can watch like the IG versus BG series, it's probably the best playoff series that we'll have.
Oh yeah, I totally will. Don't worry about that one. I'm very excited to watch that, actually.
But yeah, that's it. So. EG versus IG will probably also be good.
I just thought it would be funny to bring up the fact that people often try to like if Gambit fights all the time, oh, they must be Chinese. If LMQ fights all the time, well, they did actually have Chinese players, in fairness. But anyway, these teams are always Chinese teams. So like, everyone who just fights all the time mindlessly is LPL light. And by the way, when I say light there, I don't mean like Death Note style, because obviously, like whatever Kikaru or whatever means plan. So at least in Death Note he had a plan. They don't have any plan here. They just fight all the time.
They remind me the most of, we mentioned like old school IG from like last year or the year before, where they would just play these random like cheese picks sometimes, and then they would like fight and they would try to take you off guard. So I guess that's a comparison that's warranted in this case. If you go back to like 2013, early 2014 IG.
So here's the problem. Since Unicorns of Love have won this series, then it means they're in the final now. So we have to actually ask for real the question going forwards of whether or not they're going to win the final of EU LCS. So has Unicorns of Love, Monty, proved themselves to be an elite level European team?
No. But you know what is so frustrating?
You can't just say that in an offhand manner. Everyone watching the show now is like, what?
Stop.
Unpack that now.
Because I don't like a lot of their picks, and I think that they are capable of playing a normal game, but I think they've also been super contingent on the mistakes of their opposition and on Hylissang's playmaking ability. And I think that if somebody finally takes that away from them, I don't know what that team looks like anymore.
Oh god, you mean that the two teams in the final, Monty, are the ones where you spend all your time like, if they just take these picks away and if they play off this certain style, they won't win, it won't work, it shouldn't work. I don't like it. I just don't, god damn it, I don't like it. They're in the final, Monty. FNATIC versus Unicorns of Love, it happened. No one figured it out. No one knew how to stop it. No one could stop it. Sometimes people win. You've muted yourself, by the way.
I reject this timeline, Thorin. I reject this timeline.
No,
I don't want to be a part of this. And you know what? I can't even say they're going to win, because I don't know, as we talk about this next series, if FNATIC is just going to play some dumb Lee Sin with Smite top again and nearly lose in a 3-0. I don't know that.
Okay. So then let's delay that talk until after this next series. So FNATIC played H2K. And the first couple of games of the series, you're all thinking, right, you're going to talk about like Ryu's the Hana, you're going to talk about H2K playing well. No, the first thing we have to talk about is what Monty just referenced there. Like, basically, if you're replacing someone who's a legendary character, okay, you don't try and do what he did and then do it worse. But what Huni showed us in this series is that he is no Soaz, sir. He is no Soaz. Soaz is a legend on Lee Sin top. You are someone who should not be picking Lee Sin top. I don't know why you picked it. Well, you did to try and get a triple buff. But actually, believe it or not, it's like Huni. Okay, I've realised, Monty. Huni is actually a secret TSM fan. He thinks if you can triple buff a team, it's game over. It's impossible to win beyond that. So then apparently he learned that, no, you still have to play the game out beyond that and like make plays, you know. So what do you think?
Interesting that they learned in the series.
Lee Sin top. Listen, Monty, in this game we've learned, in this meta, you need damage top, you need scaling, so Lee Sin, perfect champ.
Get out.
Soaz told me Lee Sin scales better than Renekton, remember? You remember that? You remember that? That was good.
Okay, maybe, so yeah. This was a much more frustrating version of what happened with Impulse, right? Because at least Impulse, they took one of their strengths, and I thought with this meta they'd be able to magnify it with that Smite. But in this case, I mean, we're looking at this team that decides to take their rookie of the split player, who has been great on these mages. He's been great at carrying these games on champions like Rumble, like Hecarim. Yes, I know they were banned. In fact, do you know what they did? They tried to ban 3 top laners against him, H2K. That's how many bans he was absorbing. But instead of playing Vlad, which we know he can play later in this series, they start like going Olaf jungle, we're going to double smite them, get all up in their business. Here we go, we got some buffs, except it doesn't really matter, and then he just gets outscaled down the stretch. I don't even like that H2K is playing Shen, because I think you can abuse his lack of wave clear with aggressive proxy farming, like we've seen a million times against Shen in the past, or with Singed against Shen in the past.
Didn't you say last week that you don't like Vlad as a top lane pick?
I don't like it in the certain compositions that it was being run in.
Okay.
It depends on the composition that you're running it in, or again, both with and against. In the cases of these games, I do think it was fine. They tried to 1-3-1, especially in Game 4 that Fnatic run. They were running Vlad Zed, that's an extraordinarily strong 1-3-1 split push composition.
See, we have different segments on this show, Kelsey. Like, there was the segment about what does Thorin want to do with TSM. Then there was the segment about what doesn't Monty like about Fnatic and Unicorns of Love.
No, the point is that I'm getting to is that we knew Fnatic's identity coming in, and I felt like Fnatic just abandoned everything they were good at and decided to
Tip then.
Try
they just
and cheese.
Did stuff that didn't make sense.
Yeah, they did stuff that totally didn't make sense. I think that they were lucky to win Game 2. As a matter of fact, using that same Lee Sin style top lane. And I think that if we had just seen H2K not take those early fights, because they were trying to take early fights with Cassiopeia and Jinx and Shen, if they had just let it scale and sat in their lanes, they win that game very easily.
Kelsey,
I don't know
any
what
thoughts?
to say.
Any thoughts so far?
And the other side of this coin is that when they stopped doing that, they won pretty convincingly. When they went back to what we know they're comfortable at, they won pretty convincingly. So I don't know. I didn't like the strategy that they had set up coming into this game. I think if Huni had played standard picks, that they certainly do well. Maybe they were thrown off by the 3 top lane bans. I don't know.
What do you think, Kelsey?
And the 3 top lane bans.
But they played Vlad later with those same 3 top lane bans.
So I think they probably had, we have a couple strategies prepared for these top lane bans, and the first time it didn't fail, and they're like, oh, okay, well, we can see where we made these mistakes. We can still do it again. We don't have to use our other top lane ban strategy yet. And then they played it, and they won the second game. They're like, oh, okay, this is working. Game 3,
it was
and
clearly
then they
terrible
lose.
in all 3 games.
Yeah, I know. It was just a rationalization. It almost felt like they were trying to keep the Vlad in their back pocket a little bit. I'm not sure what the logic was because it didn't seem like it was working even in the game that they won, like you said. So
no, it wasn't. That was not the reason they won. They won because H2K fought them in really inopportune times for H2K.
And who was the main carrier for Fnatic, Monty? Wasn't Huni. It was Febiven. Take that, Forgiven. Take that, my friend. Where's your boy Fox now? Where's he? Where's that top 2 mid laner? Well, you have your top 2 ratings, Forgiven. I'm just looking at the 2 players who are left in the final of LCS, and it's not Fox. So, how close was H2K actually winning the series, though?
I think they were. I think that I think Fnatic would have stopped using Lee Sin top after Game 2 if they had lost it. So were they any closer? I'm not exactly sure. I think that Fnatic was the stronger team coming in here. And I think that once they returned to their strengths, especially that Game 5, they absolutely smashed H2K.
And how did you feel about Ryu losing a Game 5? Things change, Monty. More things change.
I don't know.
Good times.
The whole thing, though, I thought was rather. I don't. So as to who's going to win the final, I don't know. I think if Fnatic does that crap again, it's a total 50-50. Who knows? If they just play normal Fnatic style, if Huni's playing an AP top, I think they're going to do just fine. If they play normal Fnatic style, if they play the same style we saw in games 4 and 5, I think it's a 3-0 for Fnatic.
But what about the chaos that Unicorns of Love will create?
I refuse to believe in chaos, Thorin.
Chaos is a ladder, my friend. As we all learned from that episode. So, what do you think, Kelsey?
I think positionally, H2K and Fnatic, just looking at laning phases, it aligns much better than SK because you have Huni's very strong like Febiven, as you guys have been very, very hard with this Febiven thing. And then you actually have like another really strong...
I'm sorry, is young Febiven not on the level of God V, aka Wayless? It's funny how that guy just disappeared right out of those elite rankings in like that, those last like 20 odd games.
Yeah, we're not talking about. I already expressed my thoughts on LGD regular season.
It's weird that, isn't it? Yeah. He was so good, and then suddenly. No,
again, so the reason why I rank God V highly is because I actually think that there's more to this game than like how you. Than just 1v1ing someone.
I reject that assertion. It is not a team game. It is a complicated series of 1v1s that never in any way coalesce into team play. You take that back. Okay, continue.
But I think that Febiven, is very strong, and that the matchups, like the fact that I would say Vivachachi and Power of Evil, whether or not you say like they're strong or stronger or weaker than Fox or Freddy, I think they have more playmaking elements to them, so they could like potentially carry games, whereas like FNATIC also has answers to that. They have a playmaking support, and you've got like the Steelback not Hjarnan, excuse me. You've got Steelback matching up much better in the bottom lane, so like the very similar types of AD carries, so I think that FNATIC has like the slight edge even in terms of matchups. And FNATIC, I think, is comfortable with team fighting, like very comfortable with team fighting, and
their shot calling is a billion times better.
So they're not reliant. Even I do think that they have a better lane phase advantage than SK did, but I also think that they're less reliant on just winning lane. So,
well, that's 100% true.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know how anyone can be talking shit on Yellowstar to this day at this point in time. This guy's like the fucking legendary... This guy at this point in time is like the most legendary fucking Western captain you'll ever get. You got a bunch of players where none of them have played in LCS before, transformed him into a team that's probably going to win LCS now. I reckon this guy is the guy you'd send to lead the fucking crack squad of people into Nazi Germany to, like, help the Allied D-Day forces arrive early on, and he'd go in and do the espionage, like, this is the guy you'd follow. This guy, he is Captain America. Yellowstar.
Yeah, Captain France just doesn't have the same ring to it, does it? Well, and also, just the scouting that he had done, I mean, I don't think Reyno is some sort of godly jungler, but I don't think there's any denying at this point that Huni is a really good player. And Huni came from the Samsung, like, farm team. He wasn't even a sub. He wasn't even a Samsung sub. That was Gamsu who was sitting there up as a top lane sub. He was on Samsung Red. This is the team that Samsung thought they might be sending to Europe to compete in the European LCS. And he played him at Worlds when they were scrimming, found him, and that's how he got into this season.
There you go.
Okay, let me ask you this then. So make your predictions now. What score prediction are you going for here, Monty?
I told you, 3-0 if FNATIC doesn't do anything wacky. No more off-meta crap.
Kelsey, what do you think?
And I have faith in Yellowstar as a resound leader of his ship, but I don't know if he's like perfect, so I'm going to go 3-1. Because I feel like Unicorns of Love can, I think FNATIC is better at maybe adapting than necessarily coming out like guns blazing. So I think they might lose like a first or second game here or there.
Okay. See, I'm going to go 3-1 as well. Now, my logic is, part of the reason why I don't think Unicorns of Love can win is because of all the teams Unicorns of Love have played, I thought the one that was closest to their style before was Gambit, because Gambit liked to do the same bullshit skirmish style, and as a result, those were really close games. The fights were super back and forwards, whereas I think FNATIC's like a better version of that. So I can't see how Unicorns Love can win, because FNATIC does what Unicorns Love does better, and they even have players in corresponding positions that are better. Like, for example, it would help if you were on the Unicorns of Love side, if you had a really good AD carry, so you could maybe at least have some exposure there against Steel, but you don't. That's like one of your weakest positions. You like have to get that guy on the Jinx or something, else he's not going to carry. So I think that's really good matchup for FNATIC. But with that said, whenever your style of play is super heavy skirmish style in those ridiculous fights, who can predict how those fights go? You can lose a game doing that for sure. So it's the same as I made the joke when we were waiting for this King Snake series to finish. Like, when you saw that massive fight in Game 5 of the King Snake series, it's like what's the point in even being a pro team if that's going to be your style? Like, you can't practice that. You can't know how that's going to work. There's nothing to do with the art of practicing and developing a team and strategy that will ever be replicatable about that fight that happened in, like, the bottom side jungle. Therefore, if that's your whole style, like, fuck me, you're never going to win using that. Like, it's a bad style. So I think, yeah, FNATIC will win. So now it begs the question, if this FNATIC team goes to MSI, how can they match up against any of these Asian teams?
I'm not so confident. I'm not so confident that they're refined enough. Like you said, they are very scrappy in certain ways where they take fights, they overextend where they shouldn't, and they roll the dice a little bit, I think, too much. And especially because of the format of MSI being pretty demanding and rigorous in terms of the playing everyone, and I'm just not sure that's going to really work out for them.
What about you, Kelsey? What do you think?
Yeah, and well, I already said that I think TSM will beat them. So after that, I don't think that they'll match up that well against SK Telecom.
Well, obviously the best team in the world will beat them. But what about the others? What about like the Chinese team and the Korean team?
Who has very crisp execution of a lot of their different styles. EDG, like if they can integrate you, has very crisp execution of what they do when they're playing seriously. So yeah, I don't think it works. I don't think they'll match up super well against either of those teams. Like, again, like, you is the question mark, so I'm going to leave it at that, but I'm going to tentatively predict that if EDG wins playoffs with you and then EDG goes to MSI with you, I think they can still beat TSM and FNATIC using, like, the Monte logic.
Let's not forget, EDG has Deft playing on their team. FNATIC has fucking Steelback playing on their team. That's also why I'm pissed off SK didn't make it. Because that was it. Once they made the final, they were home clear, Monty. That was where they get to dumpster on FNATIC and become the best team. And they fucked it up against Unicorns of fucking Love. They fucked it up against a team that's like a joke team of like, haha, it'd be cool if they made it, wouldn't it? No, it wouldn't. That would spoil everything, you fucks.
That's what people are saying, like, oh, wouldn't it be amazing if WE upset EDG here and then they went on and they went and represented? No,
it wouldn't.
No.
Wouldn't. Because you have to remember, the problem with Cinderella runs, that's why that's such a beautiful term, Cinderella run. Because you don't then just win at the end. The horse turns back into a fucking mouse and the carriage turns into a pumpkin. It doesn't work after that run. That's why it's a magical run, you know. It's that you're playing above and beyond your normal level. Same as in sports, okay? In the NBA, every now and then there's been cases where like a number 8 seed did magically upset the number 1 seed. Nearly all the time, they then just lose in the next round because they just had a good matchup in that one game or played above and beyond in that one series. But they actually are the number 8 seed. They're not good. And all you really do by doing so, here's the problem with a big upset, is when the worst seed beats the best seed, all that usually happens isn't that the worst seed then goes and wins, it's that the number 2 seed now has a way easier time to win the league, because they don't have to play the first seed. So likewise, I don't think it would be good if Unicorns of Love represented Europe. I'm sorry to all the people who are like, boo! They give the fans what they want. They do crazy. Like at this point, Unicorns of Love feels like Twitch plays jungle. Like what the fuck is this? Like, fuck you guys who like that shit. That's fucking terrible. They're the ultimate example of what I hate in fans, where fans just love novelty and gimmicks. Like, you've gone too far. Fucking Unicorns of Love are like one of those like terrible comedy shows where people are wearing like wacky glasses and like fucking bow ties that spin round and stuff. Like, if you laugh at that, shame on you. Shame on you, sir. I'm actually berating people for being fans of a team that won Best of 5 series here, Monty. But there's nothing's changed there. That's what I've been pretty much doing my whole career. So, let me think. What else? So FNATIC. What if Unicorn? Listen, we have to think about this, Monty. I have to ask this question.
It's a real possibility.
What if Unicorns of Love represent Europe at MSI?
God help us all.
Monty, what if Unicorns of Love represent...
The NA over EU jokes will continue for at least another 6 months.
Are you ready, Monty? What if Unicorns of Love represent Europe at MSI and GE Tigers have no idea of all the crazy picks that they're going to do. And you know how Korean teams historically don't do well against utterly mad picks? And they're just like, what is this? What is this?
To be fair, TSM is historically the team that doesn't do well against super crazy picks. They're like,
oh my God.
Adapting to the game.
Monty just brought me to the next point. Unicorns of Love in a best of 5 against TSM. What? Fans, come with me for a second. What if Unicorns of Love beat TSM in a best of 5? Monty, I'm now pulling for Unicorns of Love to go. Use your logic. I need TSM to get there, but I need Unicorns of Love to get there as well.
Dude, they're not likely to face each other.
I need it, Monty.
that would imply that like TSM and UOL will be ranked like 2 and 3.
Monty, this makes all the bad things go away. This makes everything better. It was all for a reason. They didn't die in vain. Forgiven didn't die in vain. Febiven didn't die in vain. It's all worth something if Unicorns of Love can just win that best of 5. Well, and oh my God,
Forgiven didn't die in vain. He died in Corky in game 5.
If even once, yeah, okay, good pun. If even once, Monty, it doesn't matter what happens in that series if Unicorns of Love go. If even once Power of Evil solo kills in lane Bjergsen, it'll be like I've been fucking tasered. I'll just be like, at the level of euphoria that will ripple through my body. It'll be like when Frankenstein's monster got electrocuted by that tower. Like, I'll just be like, it's alive! Like, I won't even be able to handle it. Because fans will be so triggered. It'll be, and by the way, I'll be having an MVP performance on Twitter if that ever happens, guys. Just fucking lock onto that shit. Go to twitter.com, Thorin3 hours. I'll be going off on this shit. So now I want that, Monty. I'm now pulling for Unicorns of Love to win. To go there, I want your TSM to win as well. You're right. This is what I need to happen.
You already got what you wanted. They already beat TSM at IEM.
And it has to be more, though, because then people are like, but it was the off-season, they didn't care. It's like, really? I thought that was Bjergsen getting his head smashed in. Nope, he wasn't practicing, and they didn't pick ban phase was bad. Like, I've never heard that excuse before when a team's lost before. Yeah, we did. My favourite one, Monty, better than pick ban, is the one where people say they didn't prepare. It's like, well, how is that an excuse? You're just a fucking idiot then. Sorry, I failed this exam. Why? Didn't do any work or learn any of the stuff. Okay, so what is your conclusion from that? I'm actually really good, but I didn't study any of it. Well, then you're not good, are you, fucking idiot? That's what the exam tells you, that you're not good. You didn't prepare. You are bad. You're a bad student. You are not good. You do not get any bonus marks for not, like, well, I did fail, but I didn't try. Like, well, that's even worse. That's even worse. Are you an idiot? That's even worse.
The narrative won't be that TSM is, like, not as good as anticipated, though. It will be that Unicorns of Love is just some god-tier team. So...
Now you've just made me. Now you fucked everything up, Kelsey. Because now you've made me realise that if Unicorns of Love do win, they'll be in the LoL Esports Power Ranking top 5 at the end of the tournament. So now I have to pull against them. I'm reverting all my decisions. I want FNATIC to win MSI. I want, it's already gone. Let me think. Was there anything else? Oh yeah, it's Korea, I guess. So we've got playoffs coming up, Monty. What about Korea? Where should we start?
GE versus SKT?
What, we're just skipping the first round altogether, are we?
No, from last week.
Oh, right, in the regular season, yeah. So the game that you said, remember, Monty, wouldn't be that good. Like, they probably wouldn't even try that hard. And I said, no, be the opposite. People will be going guns blazing. They'll be trying to prove a point to each other. Like, if you meet me in the final, motherfucker, this is what you're going to get. Some more of this. And what happened, Monty? What was the outcome?
I think you were right.
And has it shaken your faith at all? Remember,
has it shaken your faith? You're the one who thinks GE's going to win this season.
They are going to win, mate. They are. You want to double down? You want to go hard at this shit?
Well,
we didn't even make a bet in the first place.
Let's make a bet now then, Lord bet. But I have to get good odds because I've got the team that's on the worst side of it. Monty, yours is favourite and all that. So let's make the Lord bet. Let's go.
All right.
So you're taking SKT to win the final of OGN.
I am.
Condition though, if SKT don't make the Lord bet, I still win the bet, right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just going to take GE to win. So there we go. Easy money. Easy money. There we go. Thorin taken. Here's the thing. People don't know this. I will admit I lose a lot of Lord bets. That's not deniable at this point in time. But if you notice a trend, in general, I tend to take the Lord bets, which actually have a really good odds for me on paper. Like, I'm always taking the winning team. Admittedly, I'm losing a lot of them, so the something about my strategy isn't quite tweaked yet. But this could be the one that turns it around and creates a winning tradition in my team. And going forwards, my organisation is going to be a winning organisation with many Lord titles. Unfortunately, I won a Lord bet, but then had to give up a fucking Majesty bet immediately. But how much of a Majesty can you really be if you then lose a series to Kikis? I'll ask you that, Forgiven. Majesty. How much of a can you really be if you lose a best of 5 to Kikis? By the way, you know that whole thing about how cheese doesn't work in a best of 5? I think we have to change that definition, Monty, because I'm starting to feel like that doesn't work as a hard and fast rule anymore.
Sadly, you may be right.
You have to have different
We'll just
variations.
hope that it was an extreme outlier.
You have to have different variations of well-prepared cheese.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got to have different types of cheese. You can't have one. You can't just keep ramming cheddar in there. Eventually, people are going to get sick of that. You have to be going all the different way, you know. I mean, listen, Monty, if I'd have had to face some weird exotic cheese, I'd have lost too. That was wasted on you. There's a type of cheese called Adalost from Sweden, Monty. Okay, anyway, I'm too good for this show. Why do I waste this fucking material? I should be on, like, PTL or something. They'd have, like, canned applause behind me. Freak would tell me what a great joke it was. No, because obviously in my world, Freak would be fired, so I could be on PTL. So anyway, well, I'll just read it back here again. That was what I wanted again there, so... Let me think. I think we've pretty much talked about everything here. Oh no, well, let's talk about the playoffs. Let's get Kelsey's thoughts here. So we know the playoff bracket, this gauntlet, where Jinair has to face CJ, then the winner of that, so CJ, has to play SKT, then the winner of that, SKT, has to play I mean, I hate to spoil the whole playoffs for everyone, but they have this gauntlet. What are you thinking about Jinair versus CJ, Karen? Kelsey, whatever your name is, I don't know. You're confusing me now.
I did really like Jinair going into this, but I think
who does?
Again, a lot of these early game teams got a little bit disadvantaged by some of the patch changes, especially if they don't play like the tank meta very well. So having on Monte Cristo's recommendation watched more of them since the past change, I don't think that they'll win this. Whereas CJ, like always, the criticism is that their only thing they're good at is team fighting, and team fighting is much more favored. So
it's not all they're good at. In League of Legends, it's not all they're good at.
Coco's been playing much more meta champions, and Jinair just hasn't adapted. They keep playing these bursty compositions, they keep playing Corki and Graves, and they don't look good against teams that play a lot more tanky styles like we see from SKT and like we see from CJ.
So who do you have winning that, Monty?
Oh, I think CJ wins it easily. I'll be surprised if Jinair wins a game.
We did it, guys. We finally broke him. We kept twisting that the safe lock. We heard the click. We got one click. There we go. Got to the next one, and finally we cracked it open. Unfortunately, we opened it, and there was nothing inside except an old flame poster, and then written in pen on it was "Faker's going to kill everyone on CJ." So it doesn't even matter who actually wins this game. This is like the third place decider, basically. It's not actually... you thought it was the fourth place decider, Monty. It's actually the third place decider. It's irrelevant who wins this series.
In a way, it's almost as if Monty is as bad as like fans of... as bad as I am with IPL 5 and WE, where I hold on to this like one performance that we'll never have. He's all the way back at the beginning of the season with that 70-minute game. It's like, Jinair, they're that good.
Well, no, there was two games, remember?
In one meta, but
there was the game against SKT and there was the game against GE. Monty never recovered from those. It took him weeks to come down from the high of those games, where he could even blithely just like pour off other losses to like worse teams. Like, that's fine. If they can just play to that level... And like, wait a minute, didn't they even lose in those super long games? But they were amazing games. They were some of the best games I've ever seen.
They didn't lose in those games.
Okay, they didn't lose those ones, whatever. So...
I think that's a pretty important distinction.
Yeah,
sir.
whatever. I don't have to remember all the facts. So, yeah, I think CJ's going to win this. I think it'll be close, though. I don't think it's going to be like some stomp, because it's CJ. They can't just body everyone. Let me think. So let's do a hypothetical dry run. Can CJ beat SK Telecom? Can it happen?
I think it could, but it's unlikely.
What is the spacing between these series, by the way? Is there like a week between each other?
A week, yeah.
In that case, fuck it. We can talk about those ones on the next episode.
Yeah.
I'll just ask Kelsey her general thoughts. Who do you think is going to win this season of OGN?
I think SK Telecom has looked better in the past 2 weeks than GE Tigers, so unless GE Tigers can pick it up, because I think they're better at abusing with their new jungler, they're better at abusing GE's like more lackluster.
But there's no guarantee they will play their new jungler.
This is true, but I even think Bengi's like okay in this current meta.
I think they're going to play Bengi in the playoffs, personally.
Bengi Nunu all the way.
Like, I think Bengi's is fine in this current meta. Like, he's able to play his, like, I'm just going to ward everything type style, and it works okay.
So you think SKT beats GE?
Yeah.
Has the GE hype died for you after IEM?
I don't think the GE hype has died. I still think it's pretty close. I just think that they're just a little bit worse at the new patch than SK Telecom is. And SK Telecom's execution in terms of like where GE's weaknesses are a little bit better.
Okay. Alright. Oh yeah, if everyone wants to know more about Kelsey and her stuff, she's got a Facebook page, which is also Karen Moser. Don't ask why, we're not going to go into that. So Karen Moser, same on Twitter. She has it. Also, she's great at marketing herself. She knows how to get those snappy names. So if you want to see more videos from her, you go to a channel called Chinese Law Broadcasting Channel. So something fucking amazing. Are you actually some sort of robot from the future who's trying to learn how humans talk or something like? Who would name a channel that? Like, that's not even a name. Like, that's like some socialist nightmare name, like Chinese Law Broadcasting Channel. Okay, so anyway, go to that channel if you want her videos, including her, Froscorian. Interestingly, they talk from like the similar sort of mic setup. I don't know what that is. You guys can speculate. I don't want to be one to say anything about that. So that's about it. That's the end.